You're on.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:03 p.m. on Thursday, March 16th, 2023. I'm Mitch Cohen. I chair the Northborough Board of Selectmen, soon to be hopefully called the Select Board. We've got a special meeting tonight, but as always, I will read the introductory remarks. This open meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with the July 16th, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Board of Selectmen are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Board of Selectmen to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting, as always, will feature public comment. I will now go around the room and make sure everyone can be heard. Let's see, just in order on my screen, Scott Rogers.
Present.
Jason Perot.
Present.
Kristen Wickstead.
Present.
And Julianne Hirsch.
I'm here.
We also have with us, keep that up, and then we'll describe that in just a second, Kristen. We also have some staff members with us. We have Becca Meekins, Assistant Town Administrator.
Present.
And Jason Little, Finance Director.
Present.
And we also have Northborough Cable with us tonight. We always like to encourage education, and Kristen spent some time with some fifth graders at Peasley and would like to know the fifth graders. The code word is liver, like Chief Liver. So all the fifth graders know that now, and make sure to tell your teachers. And I don't know what you'll get, but hopefully something good. Thank you very much, Kristen, for arranging that. That's a lot of fun. First on our agenda, as always, is public comment. I just saw someone go into the attendees list. We'll give just a few seconds in case somebody has. For folks at home who aren't following with the agenda, this is a special meeting where we just have a couple of items on the agenda, one left over from our long meeting from Monday and another that was intentionally scheduled separately. So I'm not seeing any hands up in the audience. So we will continue with our agenda. And our first agenda item tonight is discussion and vote regarding proposed amendment to the senior tax deferrals, Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A, for inclusion on the town meeting warrant. And we have with us tonight special guest Jason Little, Finance Director. Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about this and let us know a recommendation.
All right. Well, thanks for having me back tonight. Over a lengthy period of time, the issue of senior tax relief has come up a number of times. The assessor's office administers the tax exemptions that are allowed under Mass General Law, and we have a listing in various places. We have it at the treasurer's office when people pay their tax bills. We have it on the web page for the assessor's office. So if you go to the assessor's web page and click on the table, you'll see the full list of options that are offered, and a lot of these are granted by statute in Mass General Law. And again, I keep bringing up Mass General Law because the options that we offer have to be codified in law. So while we were working through this process of meeting with various departments to review the options that the local options that we have adopted over time, the Board of Assessors and multiple people have brought up the issue of the tax deferrals. And when we looked at our 41A tax deferrals, it was noticeable that we've never gone back and amended these at all. These are what was set by state statute and by default when the law passed. And again, this was not a local option that the town offered. This was something that the state offered through legislation. So it's available everywhere. You know, the 41A deferrals is a program that's available in any town in Massachusetts. So We surveyed our surrounding communities, and I'm sure that you've had a chance to look at the memo. I put an amended one in the packet for you tonight. So again, our recommendation here is to be close to what our neighbors have done in terms of making this program a little more generous and offering a 4% deferral rate. And again, for the benefit of people watching, let me take a step back and explain what the 41A program is. It's a program whereby people over 65 that have a relatively low income can defer their tax bill. And again, the tax bill doesn't disappear, it stays, but people over 65 are allowed to defer their taxes up to 50% of the equity in their home. And their estate would have to pay off that balance at the time that the property or the time that the property is conveyed to somebody else. So again, there's little exposure to the taxpayers through this program because it's just a balance that grows over time. The senior sees the relief of not having to pay their taxes in real time up until the limit. And there's often a somewhat lower interest rate than seeking a reverse mortgage or something like that in order to pay their obligations. Right now, the town of Northborough over time has between 0 and 1 person on a deferral agreement at a time. So it's not a frequently used program. If we roll out higher and more generous balances, it's unknown how many more people would benefit from it. So it's kind of since it's been brought up so many times by our Board of Assessors and in recent months, this is our first opportunity to kind of act on it and take it to town. This would take town meeting action to change these two factors. The factors being the income limit and the deferral percentage rate. So the recommendation here, I'm going to skip to that, is to move from the income limit of $20,000, which is set by statute, and just not to get too sidetracked, but this law was added by legislation in 1974. So the $20,000 was codified in 1974. So what we're proposing here is going to what's the maximum allowed by the law, which is the single person senior circuit breaker amount that's published by the DOR every year. And this amount is $64,000. So we're basically proposing tripling the income limit. So if you're a senior with a household income of $64,000 or less, you could potentially apply to do this program. Just a point of reference, the $64,000 as well, I plugged that into the inflation calculator, and the $64,000 today is the same as $20,000 in 1982 dollars. So we're pretty close to moving that $20,000 up to current. But again, the $64,000 is the maximum that's allowed in the law. The other recommendation we made was to drop the default interest rate at 8% down to 4%, just to be in line with more of our neighbors and neighboring communities. And that's the last of my presentation here.
Thank you very much, Jason. Questions from the board? I saw Julianne jump up just before Jason.
Sorry, Jason. So on the sheet that you gave us for the last meeting, there was a single person upper limit, and was there a like a married upper limit of income?
Yeah. So through the chair, the process between Monday and tonight, it allowed us to discover that some of our internal materials were wrong, and there's really no ability to offer a married rate. It's really just one household limit that's in the law. So
Okay.
like I said, we've had between 0 and 1 person participating in this program, so it didn't result in us having, our materials being wrong internally. Didn't result in us violating anything, but that's our materials have since been corrected.
And one more question, what was your rationale about 4% other than that we're in line with other communities? You could go down as far as what? Could you, I saw something 2%?
You could go down to 0%.
Oh, so what was the thought about that?
It was doubling the benefit, and it was being more generous. It was in line with our neighbors, and it's that was all that was behind that. That
No,
was,
I think my question is not clear. Why are you recommending 4% and not 0%?
well, the thought was that 4% is something. I mean, the town should get compensated something for the loss of tax revenue that it's getting for the period of time. There is a time value of money, and we would be this is similar to a reverse mortgage in that people are building up a balance that the town is funding by not collecting the tax revenue. So we felt like it was similar to our neighbors in that that we wouldn't just go to 0, because that seems like that would be encouraging people to participate in the program that may not need to, by giving them a 0% interest rate.
Okay, thank you.
But if that's what the board were to recommend, we would implement it.
Julianne, you all set for now?
Thank you.
Okay, Jason Pro, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm thinking at least along the same lines in terms of questions about the interest rate. And in asking these questions, I'm not really recommending anything. I'm just trying to understand the reason for setting it. And I agree that that in deferring the taxes, yeah, there is a cost to the town, and that there's some compensation that ought to be applied in that circumstance in terms of a non-zero interest rate. So I certainly would agree with that. I guess I would ask whether there's any linkage at all between the interest rate that's set here and whatever current, market interest rates might be in terms of U.S. Treasury issuances, or it's just not really related at all. The question being, the purpose behind that question is interest rates had been abnormally low for an extremely long time. And now we're seeing those interest rates come up, and I'm just wondering if there's any correlation between what we would be charging and what those rates would be, or it's just simply setting a fixed rate, and that seems reasonable to provide compensation back to the town for the deferral over what's potentially a lengthy period of time.
Through the chair, I'd comment as well that when this law was passed in 1974, there were not local options to change the interest rate or the income limits. Those were hard coded into the law. This section has since been amended 6 times over the years, the most recently in 2016, where the local options were added to change these interest rates. And I don't know what the interest rates were in 1974 for mortgages or the federal rates, but they wrote 8% hard coded into the law back then. A quick Google search of reverse mortgage rates had them at like 6.9% or somewhere in that average. And I don't know. There's not a right answer to this question. It's has to be somewhere between 0 and 8%, because we can't go below 0. And I don't think we would advocate for going above what the law originally was to start with. So again, the thought was 4%. It's meant to be a safety net, and 4% seemed like that was a generous rate to offer, since it seems to be lower than current rates. And beyond that, I mean, I wasn't didn't feel that strongly about putting a recommendation in here because I feel like that would be I wanted to discuss it with the board more than offer a strong opinion on the 4%.
Any other questions from board members? From my perspective, I think 4% is probably a pretty good rate. I like the idea of this making sure that the town is made whole at the end of this process. I don't want the town to make money on this. I don't want the town to lose money on it. 4% seems like about the right rate right now. We can't by law set it to any index. Nor can we set the dollar amount to an index, even though it is an index that the state sets annually. So in theory, we could have this as an annual article every year. Not specifically advocating for that. We haven't changed it in 30 years. Hopefully we'll address it again before another 30. It may make sense if the interest rates change dramatically, or inflation causes the index to go up considerably, to readdress it. Maybe we think about it every 2 to 4 years and just kind of keep it, again, as flexible as possible for seniors that might be eligible and as close to being made whole and nothing more or less for the town. Most people will pay this back after they're deceased by their heirs, as part of the dispensation of their property. It operates, I think, substantively like a lien on the property, like a mortgage would or anything else. That when the property is transferred to somebody else, the town gets a check as part of that process. So I am very much in favor and very, very happy that we're addressing this. There are obviously a lot of seniors in town that are experiencing issues. We want to make sure that they can stay in their homes as long as possible if that's what's best for them. And this is a tool that we have available. There aren't that many tools. Massachusetts doesn't allow us to do what some other states do of passing along discounts on education related taxes or anything else as some states do. This is one of the few that's available that we have some local control over. So Jason, thank you very much. And thank you to the Board of Assessors for working on this over the last few months to bring this forward. Julianne?
So first of all, I do want to thank you, Mitch, for bringing this to our attention. But okay, so Jason, if the interest rate was brought down to 2%, would that allow a longer time as you calculate the 50% of the equity in the house? Would that give the senior another year or whatever?
I think the principal of the taxes would be much more meaningful than the interest rate. It's just the interest would be calculated at the end. So when the property is conveyed. So it doesn't get, in practice, it doesn't really get added as we're going along. It's just the principal balance that gets carried along the way. And then when it's conveyed, that's when the town gets made whole with the interest at the end.
Oh, okay. All right. And if there were a situation where, someone needed a little extra time, can they appeal it? Can they go to the assessors and appeal for more time? Or?
Okay, so the ability to get any other exemption that they would be entitled to, they would still be entitled to all their rights under the other exemptions. So if they qualify for the other senior exemptions that would take money off of the principal, they could still do that. They would still apply for those exemptions that they qualify for. If they had a problem, they will still get a tax bill in the mail because they have a right to file for an abatement. They can question the value of their home. They have the ability to file an abatement application. That wouldn't change that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Not, are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Great.
I move the board vote to include an article on the town meeting warrant to amend the senior tax deferrals, MGL, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A, to reduce the statutory interest rate of 8% and 4% to 4%, and to increase the income threshold from $20,000 to $64,000.
Second.
Motion made by Kristen and seconded by Scott. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Kristen,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Excellent. And Jason Little, thank you again very, very much for your help
Thanks for
being
Thanks,
here.
Jason.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, moving on with our agenda. The next item up, I should find out what it is. I just want to make sure I read it correctly. Is the review of town administrator recruitment proposals. So we've received 3 proposals. Becca, do you want to give us a little rundown of the process to date thus far? You've been leading that?
Sure, happy to. So on February 28th, the board issued a request for proposals, seeking proposals from executive search firms to conduct a search for a new town administrator for the town of Northborough. Yesterday, we received 3 proposals ahead of the deadline. The 3 firms were Municipal Resources, Inc., GovHR USA, and Community Paradigm. So I know that the board has received and reviewed the proposals. I will say that all 3 proposals do meet the minimum requirements of the RFP. So they've executed the required forms, and their proposals contain the information that was requested from the RFP. So at this point, the next step for the board is to conduct interviews with all 3 firms. Following the interviews, the board, if they wish, may choose to award a contract.
Thank you, Becca. Any questions about the process before we begin? So Becca has put together some suggested questions that we can ask, which I forwarded out to the board earlier today. And we can ask those before we start. I think it is important that we be consistent. Does anyone want to make any suggestions for any different questions, added questions, substantively changed language? I think it's totally fine to ad-lib a little bit. You don't have to read it word for word if you don't want to. Put it in your own voice as best you can. All right, if we're ready to begin, let's see.
Can I just interrupt
Question.
1 second?
Absolutely.
I'm home alone and I just realized I forgot to feed my dog and she's gonna just bark at me. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go do that. I'll be right back. Okay?
Sounds
Like-
good.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. This is where we take a quick 2-minute break. Jason.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify each of the questions. Each of us might have an opportunity to rephrase the question in some way, but we do want, whatever choice you make to do that, please ask the question consistently to all 3 of the interviewees.
I also think it's fine to ask follow-up questions. If somebody says something that you wouldn't have thought about asking ahead of time, I think that's reasonable. We do want to keep it moving along. But I think it's a good process. Becca, did you have any other guidance before we begin, or other way of killing the time while Kristen's feeding the dog?
No, I'll just say that, you know, if the board has any questions, obviously I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to provide guidance. My understanding is that each of the 3 firms have planned some sort of small presentation to you, likely just to walk through some of the elements of their proposal, I suspect, and maybe talk a little bit about their background and experience. And then, of course, they will make time to answer questions of the board.
Great. I just want to see who is the first. So there was a hand up in the audience from someone named Bob. Do we know if that's the first
Sure. Yeah, so
presenter? Okay.
MRI is our first firm,
Mhm.
and Buzz Stupinski and Bob Mercier are both here to present
Oh,
on
okay.
behalf of MRI.
Great.
So I'm
Great.
happy to bring them in if you're ready.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. That
Okay.
would be great. Thank you, Becca. Welcome. And if Bob, if you would care to turn on your camera, this would be a good time to do that. Very
I'm
good.
not sure you want to see this, but
you haven't seen our meetings.
oh, I watched a 4-hour meeting the other night.
Well, thank you for being willing to come anyway.
Congratulations to you guys.
Anyway, I'll introduce myself briefly. My name is Mitch Cohen. I chair the select board here in Northborough. I don't think we need to go around and introduce the other board members because you see our names in front of us anyway. We also have with us Assistant Town Administrator Becca Meekins, as is on the screen. If you would like to introduce yourselves and if you have a presentation or any sort of introduction, we'd love to hear it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the board members and Becca and your staff for getting us involved. We appreciate it. We've known obviously about Northborough for quite some time. We both know, as your other search firms will know, we all know John, and we know how well he did in your community and the status of your community and all of that good stuff. So in terms of introductions, you have a package from our president, and I apologize. He's in transit. He's traveling from Texas. He was going to try to communicate, but we said, nah, don't try. If you're in Tennessee or something and you're trying to link in here, it might not work well. So Buzz and I, Alan's the principal, obviously. Buzz and I handle the Massachusetts searches for MRI. You know, we're a regional agency. We represent the 6 New England states and some other ancillary states. We've done work in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. But our primary focus is New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Buzz and I have recently done a few in Rhode Island, South Kingston, Rhode Island, and Bloomfield, Connecticut. And we've got a couple more in the fire for possibly Connecticut. We don't have them committed yet. We're currently doing Middleton, Massachusetts. In fact, we hope to wrap that up by next Tuesday and Wednesday evening. The select board is interviewing 4 finalists on Tuesday and Wednesday evening. Middleton, if you know it, it's a community of about 10,000 folks. It's up on the North Shore area, and we're just about done with that project. In terms of anything else going, we're pretty selective on what we apply for. We are not applying for every community that comes available. We will apply to Southbridge, just to let you know, but that's it. We are not applying to any other or have any other Massachusetts communities working, and Buzz and I do the Massachusetts component. You'll see a lot on our website about what's happening in New Hampshire. Alan and his crew handle what's going on up there, but we draw candidates from Maine and New Hampshire. There's a lot of relocations that we've found in the work we've done, Mr. Chairman. For instance, we relocated an individual from Shelburne, Vermont, to come down here to the South Shore in a community on the South Shore. And you might ask, why is that? His wife's family's from the South Shore of Massachusetts. So you do get some of that when people want to come back to the roost, so to speak. And in this case, that individual has worked out quite well. So you can see we've been in business for 30 plus years. I started with MRI in 2013 after I retired out of Burlington, Massachusetts. All of my work has been in Massachusetts, Burlington, as a town administrator twice, if you can believe that. I was their first one in 1980, and I think they asked me to come back in '99, and I stayed and retired out of Burlington. I also was a town manager in Billerica, which is a pretty good sized town, about 45,000 people. Burlington's about 25,000 people. And you can see I've done some work as an interim in Wayland and in Boxborough. And I've been with Alan and MRI since then. Buzz, you want to say what you've done?
Yes, thank you for the introduction, Bob and Mr. Chairman. Yes, as Bob said, we're pleased to submit for this engagement. I myself have 40 years of municipal experience. I started a long time ago in Fairfax County, Virginia, and then moved to Massachusetts and was a town manager in Wilmington for a number of years. And then I finished my career in Andover, Mass, as town manager there. And that was 2015. After that, I started with MRI. We've been at this for about 7 years, and we've done 20, 25 searches together. And in your area, last year we buttoned up Sherborne. The year before that, we did Blackstone, and we've done a few others. I was just looking at the map here. And we did Westborough about 3.5 years ago. We did Westborough, and Jim Lloyd was hired in Lexington, and we did that search, and his assistant Christie applied for the job and was appointed. So we're aware of your process. You want to have a search committee or screening committee. We're very familiar with that process. We just went through that extensive process in Westford, Massachusetts. Finished that up in December. Bob made reference to Middleton. Middleton did not want a process like that. They wanted us to bring them 4 finalists, and we're doing that. In fact, this Saturday, there's a meet and greet for those 4 people, and so the public will have a chance. This isn't an open interview so much as a coffee kind of thing where they'll meet and greet. People want to come in and say hello and that sort of thing. So, again, Bob said we're buttoning that out next week. And look at your timeline. We think we can do this project in the 12 weeks that we're proposing. We have the office staff in the background to assist us with everything we're going to need to produce a really nice, what we call a community profile and challenge statement. I don't know if you've seen the one we included. We included Westford's, but Middleton's was just as nice, and we send that out to candidates. And your attractive community.
Did we get cut out?
I think
Buzz get cut out?
Yeah, I think we lost Buzz.
Yeah, he's been having some internet problems. So I'll continue.
Okay.
Until he gets, I just texted him and told him he left the screen. Yeah, so what Buzz was getting at is we're fairly selective. We're we have the ability to react to your needs. As I said, the communities we've dealt with are all different. Westford did have a screening committee that I know your board's interested in establishing. Our only caution on that is the numbers. If you put 22 people on a screening committee, you're going to have a problem. In Westford, they had 11. And I remember Acton had 13. Lexington had about 15. And it becomes problematic, Mr. Chairman, only because of the open meeting law and when they have to meet and people missing the meetings, and can they participate in the next discussion and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you know that better than I do. But that's why if you're going to establish your screening committee, make it a manageable number, whatever that number is. If it's 5, if it's 7, if it's 9, 9's manageable. Just keep that in the back of your mind, because that has at on occasion, elongates the process if you can't get people together, if you know what I mean. Because I'm assuming your screening committee is going to have some authority to approve things moving forward, whether or not it's the profile and challenge or whatever it happens to be. And for them to get together, review it, edit it, whatever they do, then get back together again to give it a final approval, it just stretches out the process. So that's my only caution. We've done well with screening committees. Buzz mentioned Middleton did not have one. That's fairly unique, if I do say so myself. They just told us, go find us some good candidates and bring them to us as the appointing authority. Now, we talked to everybody in town. We created a profile. We talked to the department managers. We talked to whoever they wanted us to talk to. And they gave us a list of people from various boards, whether or not it's the planning board, the school committee, whatever it happened to be. And we just talked to them to get in our minds the type of person that's going to be successful in your community. And we get that from the people who actually live in the community and work in the community. We can't give you a perfect candidate. You people will decide that. We'll give you people who will do the job, but it's really up to you to determine who is the best fit for your community. And as I said, we don't rank anybody. We just give them to you as finalists all through the screening committee and say, these people, A, you hired us to find people that can do the job. We're giving you people that can do the job. It's up to you to figure out who's going to be the best fit for Northborough. And that's our tactic. That's the way we operate. We're enthusiastic about this. It's funny, I was just talking, Buzz mentioned, we just finished Westford. Westford had a pretty aggressive process and they wanted it done fairly quickly and we met their timeline. And as he said, the assistant over in Shrewsbury, Kristen Lass, got the permanent position over there. She was thrilled. I still talk to her. We don't, this is the other thing, we don't abandon the community after we complete the process. If the new manager, administrator, board member needs some advice, just call us. We don't, you're not on a clock. We don't do that. We support our communities after we go through the process. And the other thing we don't do, we don't raid our communities. We've placed quite a few people, but we don't raid the communities of the people that were placed there. We just don't think ethically that's the right thing to do. Now, having said that, you could have an occasion where you get, and we have one now, where the town administrator or manager calls us and says, I may be interested in that community. Okay, it's you calling us, not us calling you. Now, that does not mean we won't recruit from people that we haven't placed in certain communities. We will do that. We know who some of those people are. And I think Buzz touched upon it. You folks are a desirable place. And it's a good place to be. You've had a couple of things. Stability. You're in very good shape financially. I mean, 10 years in a row with the GFOA award. It may be even more than that now, but that's pretty good stuff. That's substantive stuff that a professional manager or administrator is going to look at that and say, the place is stable. It's good financially. You got your issues. I heard about the whole White Cliffs thing that is, shall we say, a little bit controversial at this point. But that's a nice challenge for somebody to walk into. And there are people who just love that kind of stuff. I was in Burlington, and if you know Burlington, they had quite a bit of economic development going on, and you can get your hands dirty in that. And it's a real challenge for a person coming into a community, and you guys got a lot of that going on. And so anyway, we're excited, Mr. Chairman.
Bob, can I just jump in for a minute here? Sorry, folks. With the storm the other day, my internet connection has been it's been difficult, and I want to apologize for that. I hope you heard some of what I said, and I'm on my iPad now. The other night when I had a problem, even the AT&T from my iPad went out. We didn't get any AT&T in our region. So anyway, I apologize for that. And I hope you heard.
That's perfect.
some of what I
We've
said.
all been through it, and I've been through it a couple of times recently myself at meetings. So
Thank you.
no trouble.
New England's a tough place to be.
If you're done with introductions, we do have a few questions we'd love to ask you.
Sure.
We'll go around the room with some questions we've prepared in advance. I'll take the liberty of going first. And this is about input from stakeholders. How will you ensure that the select board and other internal stakeholders, that their input is included in the recruitment process? And very related to that, but a little bit of a different question, is how the public input, how you'll help us with soliciting public input and turning that into the formation of an ideal candidate.
I'll start, and I will tell you that the input from the community is what makes or breaks the process. If we were operating in a vacuum, whoever we move to you without that knowledge of what you folks need, that person's going to fail. So we make it a point to talk to each and every elected board member. Select board member, and then it's up to you to tell us who you want us to talk to. Typically, Mr. Chairman, the board will suggest, well, why don't you talk to the school superintendent, the chairman of the school committee, talk to the planning chair, not necessarily staff, because we will talk to staff. The second part of your question was who else do we talk to? We come out for a day and we sit down with all of the staff individually, because we found that group meetings, nobody tells us what we really need to hear, if you know what I mean. So what we like to do is meet with the police chief separately, the fire chief separately, the public works director separately, the planning director separately, because we really want to hear what's going on. And all of this is confidential between us and that person. And we tell them that up front. We don't run to the police chief and say, well, the fire chief says you get everything. We don't do that. But we want to know what they're concerned about as individual department managers. Similarly with boards, you want us to talk to the planning board chairman. That's good. That's always good. Conservation Commission, that's always good. We do that generally by the phone. Department heads, we want to come to the community and sit down, and I'm sorry, Becca, but we'll need your help in coordinating all of that if we're successful, because we do want to set aside rooms. And Buzz and I will split up, and we'll take various people back and forth. In terms of community input, you have in your proposal, you'd like some community listening sessions, I guess, for lack of a better term. We do that. We'll do it. Typically, what we do, one of the ways we approach that is we'll ask the community to allow us to come in and meet with the department heads in the morning and part of the afternoon, and we'll stay around for an evening meeting with the public. And we advertise it that way, and you folks would advertise it that way on your website and say, come and meet the consultants. They want to talk to you about the process. They want to hear from you, what you think about your community and what you're looking for as a resident in the next town administrator. We can do that we can do that twice. We typically want to do one at night because people do work during the day and they can't get there. But we'll do one during the day, and not for nothing, but one of the successful ones we have is always being held at either the library or the Council on Aging. That's where people gather. It's where people know that it's comfortable. And so anyway, to your point, Mitch, and the final thing we do for community input, and it depends on the community, we'll set up an anonymous email that comes directly to us, that people can respond to and write to us and say, here's what I'd like. Some people don't like to talk in public, and they don't want to talk to us, but they want to express their opinions, and we give them that access. And what we do with that, depending on how many, some communities have 5 or 10 people, some communities have 0. But it's an option for people. We ask you to post that link on your own website if we're successful, and people can go ahead and email us whatever they want to say. We will summarize that and present it. No names. We will not have names. It's an anonymous email, but we'll tell you what the comments were for your edification as you go ahead with the interviews, and you can go along that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Julianne, you're up next.
Thank you. Okay, so my question is, what methods do you use to get members to buy into a shared vision or direction in selecting the next town administrator? You happen to mention sometimes it's, especially when you have a large group, it's hard to get everybody moving in the same direction. So what techniques or methods do you use to make everybody feel good in the end?
Boys, you want to start and then I'll
Well-
jump in?
I will, Julianne, really, the way we look at it is, our job is to bring you candidates that can do the job. And we do that by listening to you folks, listening to the department heads, listening to the community at large. Also the community, if you want us to reach out, to your Chamber of Commerce, if there's an emeritus retired a town moderator that everybody thinks highly of, we'll talk to whoever you want us to talk to get a feel for the community. And then what we would do is, if we hear after talking to all five of you that there's sort of kind of disagreement about the ideal candidate, we'd come back and probably talk to you about that. But ultimately, it's your decision. And so, we really pay attention to what you want and align the ideal candidate to the ideas, the things that you tell us. And we will share our ideal candidate profile with you folks through Becca. We would send it, to Becca, and then it would get to you folks for your review. And you can come back and say, you kind of missed it. You didn't include somebody who, reaches out to, to the regional school district, or somebody that reaches out to the legislative delegation or something. So we share the ideal candidate profile, and we share the community profile with you folks prior to it being published. So I hope that answers your question, but the way we look at it, you five folks have been selected by the town to select the next TA. And we really, work with you to make sure that you get the right fit, the right person for the position.
I will follow up, Julianne, and just to, in an ideal world, everybody's going to hold hands and agree that that's the way we want to go. That's an ideal world. I can tell you we've had an experience pretty recently where the select board couldn't agree on the type of candidate they wanted.
Oh.
One of the board members wanted a strong new town administrator. The other one, nah, not so much. I'm not sure I really want a strong town manager in this case. I want somebody who's more collaborative. So anyway, the point is, Julianne, we get different views of what folks want, but all of that comes out in our discussions with you folks. And as Buzz says, if there are diametrically opposing views on who should be the next manager in terms of characteristics, we will call you in and talk to you guys and say, if we don't get our act together, this process is going to fail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Scott, you're up next.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Is there anything the board and staff can do to, during the process, increase the interest, increase the quality of the candidates? Any actions we take during the process that would help bring the best forward?
A simple answer: don't have fistfights at your meetings. Look, the candidates, Scott, to be honest, the candidates that are interested in your community are going to watch. They're going to watch a lot of meetings. They're going to watch a lot of your meetings. They're going to watch town meetings. They just will get a sense as to how the community governs itself. So answer to your question, keep yourself civil. And I've watched some of your meetings, and this is a good group. to talk to. So anybody as an outsider looking at this would say, in my opinion, this is a good place to be. Now, having said that, couple of concerns, because you asked. I understand, Scott, congratulations. Jason, congratulations. You guys are both leaving the board. And there will be people out there who may be interested in Northborough who will call us and say, what do you think that means? What do you think that means? Because you're pretty stable now. But as you know and I know, I was a selectman, by the way, in Tingsboro, my little town, for 4 years. You know how people talk. And I don't know the new candidates. I understand they're running unopposed. In fact, that's something we would need to talk to you about, whether or not you want us to talk to them. And I suspect we should. That's just my early opinion, because it's going to be important. It's going to be important to hear what they think too, because they're replacing the two of you, Jason and Scott, and it's going to be important for us to hear from them. So behave yourself, Scott. Act civilly at public meetings, and you guys will be fine. Your message, by the way, is already out there with people who are interested in Northborough.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, nice
Hi,
to meet
Kristen.
you. Thank you for coming tonight. What strategies does your firm employ to get applications from diverse candidates?
That's interesting because obviously DEI is front and center in a lot of communities, including yours. And it is difficult. And here's the answer I give people. We reach out to all of the appropriate places where we can recruit from there. And we have some pretty good experience in that. We just, about a year and a half ago, Buzz, we did Bloomfield, Connecticut. Bloomfield is a 60% minority community. And it's right outside of Hartford. Beautiful town. It's about 20,000 people. And they're run by a council and a strong town manager, form of government. And they asked us right up front in the process, what can you do to find us somebody who's from a minority community or female or whatever? And we said, we've got some ideas. And as I mentioned, we recruit in places that you normally wouldn't recruit, that we know about, mostly because of our Bloomfield experience. But what we always say to our clients, and to your question, Kristen, is that we cannot manufacture candidates. They have to be out there. And unfortunately, those affected communities are not as prevalent in our industry, and I can say that, in our industry, as we would all like. Now, that does not mean we can't find people. The Bloomfield candidate that we found for them was the assistant city manager in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And he came up, and he's a Black individual, obviously, and they loved him. He's going to retire in August after 2 years, but they loved him, and they were happy that we did what we did to find them. We also found in that very same process a minority female who applied and was in the finals. So in answer to the question, it is not easy. Anybody who tells you up front, yep, we'll find you somebody, they're not being honest with you. We want to find A, the best person we can find, and B, somebody who comes from a diverse background, if it's pertinent to the community. In other words, the Bloomfield issue, your issue, we would open up the process to anybody from any background, and we would invite those people. And if we see it, we actually champion your community for those people. As I said to Scott, you guys are a good place. You guys are a good place for a quality candidate, regardless of where the background is on that candidate. You're a good place.
Kristen, may I follow up Bob's comments? we've actually been fairly successful at female town managers, town administrators. In the town of North Andover, Melissa Rodriguez was hired about 4 or 5 years ago, and we did that search. In Berlin, about a year ago, a female was hired as town administrator there in our search. Most recently, Westford.
Kristen. Yeah.
Kristen was hired as the town manager in Westford, and then about 5 years ago in Blackstone, the woman who was the HR director in Worcester, Dori Vecchio, was hired as a town manager there, a town administrator there. So, Massachusetts is fortunate. There is a cadre of women assistants, women deputy managers, deputy town administrators who want to move up. And that's, we're fortunate in that regard. And we've had, I would say it's luck, but pretty good luck at attracting women. People of color is a little different problem. Yeah, let me just tell you, in Blackstone, I reached out to the Black Administrators Forum through ICMA. There's a Black Administrators Forum in New England. And we reached out to colleges, universities. So there are ways, there are avenues that we can pursue to find talented people.
Kristen, just one follow-up to that, just to your comment about how do you recruit. Kristen Lass was a direct recruit by me. I've known her for years, and I called her about the Westford job. She had no intention of leaving Shrewsbury, but she appreciated the fact that I gave her a ring and she was ready for that next step. She ultimately got it. So we do direct recruitment, I guess is my point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm up next.
Jason, you're up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you both for your submission, your interest, and your presence here tonight to speak with us. How do you handle the situation where the screening committee or the final round with the board, you have split opinions or inability to come to a consensus on the candidates or candidate? At what point do you intervene or facilitate or try to assist the group to come to a decision?
Both levels, Jason, just so I understand the screening, let's say the screening committee is 7
Sure.
people and they're 4-3 on moving people forward.
Sure, something, yes.
Similarly with your board, obviously, but look, we're involved in the process from day one. And if the screening committee's meeting to discuss the candidates, we're going to be there. And we're going to tell them why we think a person is a qualified person and why this one is a qualified person, but not as qualified as we would like to see move forward by the committee. So we guide them. And I can tell you one of the keys, Mitch, this is for you, I guess, and the rest of the board members. A strong chair of your screening committee is very important. Very important. You guys deal with boards and committees all the time. If you get a strong chair, that person can move the committee in a certain direction, if you know what I mean, without overbearing on the committee members and allowing them to have their say. And we're there to back up the chair. So that's going to be an important part of that process. And the final thing, Buzz, is if the board is meeting with 3 or 4 individuals for the finals and has a difficult time in terms of a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, what we suggest is you can take that vote and offer somebody a job on a 4-1 vote, but we always ask after you take that vote to make it unanimous once you see the consensus of the board. You guys have done this before, so.
And if I may, the screening committee, search committee, we will not rank the candidates going forward. So for instance, they may interview over a course of a couple of days, eight individuals, and you want to interview 4, we'll tell them we don't rank the 4. We tell the select board that 4 qualified people are coming forward. We discourage them from saying, well, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number. That's it's not their decision. The screening committee to figure out who's the number 1. That's your decision, and that's where we will guide you. We'll provide you with questions to ask the candidates, and we'll assist with the interview process, so that it will get pretty close to an unanimous vote. Obviously, that it does come down to individual discussions amongst yourselves, but we would assist you in the deliberation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Julianne, you have one additional question, I believe.
I do. So have you ever had an unsuccessful recruitment? And if you had, what were the lessons learned?
Remember I talked about nothing's perfect? We have, in my experience, we have not had an unsuccessful recruitment. And I think you probably saw in our package, we do guarantee if within a year everything falls apart, we'll do it again for nothing. That's a guarantee we've had. We haven't had to use it. Alan will thank us for that. We haven't had to use it. Now, that doesn't mean people don't leave. What Buzz just talked about in Blackstone, Dory left. She went for a better opportunity. We had nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. But she went to be in Auburn, I think, as the assistant town manager. So Dory went over to that place. But direct answer, we have not been unsuccessful yet.
Good answer. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chair, if I may, one of the challenges that we see with this search is, in looking at your charter, you folks have a residency requirement. Is that still in effect for the TA?
It currently is. We have an article on this year's town meeting warrant, which will be April 24th, to remove that. That would ask it's in our charter, so we were going to be asking the legislature to remove it on our behalf because we have to go through that process. Clearly, we would know, during this process whether that's been approved by town meeting. We understand that that's an important issue to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah, and that I appreciate that. Although in both in Wilmington and Andover, I did have residency requirements, and it worked for me personally. It worked for me. It worked for my family, but it doesn't work for everybody. So right. I wanted to raise that as an issue, and that's a good move, I think, on your part, because we're seeing, if you look at charters today, you're not seeing residency requirements like you did in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when some of them were written, and that's a good move. That would be a huge help in our recruitment for your next TA.
I agree.
Thank you. Our questions are concluded. Are there any additional questions that you want to ask of us?
Well, I mentioned earlier when Scott and Jason leave, you guys need to make some decisions as to who you want us to talk to, because I'm assuming that those 2 new members are going to be involved in the vote for the new town administrator.
I think the timing works out that way. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll need to figure that all out. Mm-hmm. Buzz also talked to you about the residency. Can we give you a general overview and then we'll shut up because I know you're busy tonight? It's an interesting time in our profession. You've seen some movement around. In fact, your administrator just left. But those are ideal communities. Where John is going is a terrific community. You fall in that category. So our sense is you're going to get folks, mid-level management folks, maybe some from smaller towns, town administrators, town managers in smaller towns who are looking for that next step. And a lot of the what we call the premier towns, where you fall in that realm, have been filled. So there was a lot of movement there for about a year. COVID slowed down some of that, but it's been picking up lately. And I know there are some communities out there. For instance, Avon's open, Ipswich was open. Those aren't to your level. So you're going to get that next level of candidates that are looking for the next career move, I'll call it, where they want to be a manager, an administrator in a bigger place or in a better titled position, like Kristen just did going to Westford as an assistant in Shrewsbury. That's the group we think you're going to attract.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I thank
you.
Just one last thing.
Sure.
Part of the engagement would be assisting you folks in finding an interim town administrator, and we're prepared to do that. We have folks that do that, have done that with us, and we'd be happy to bring those names forward should we be fortunate enough to be awarded this engagement. And there are folks out there that would love to be here for 3-4 months, 5, whatever it takes to be a transition administrator.
The final thing I'll say, I apologize, we're wordy, but I apologize. One of the things that candidates will ask us, and we don't know that yet, and you probably don't know that yet, are there going to be internal candidates? And we don't know that. Sometimes some of the managers, because of professional ethics, will say, if there's an internal candidate, I'm not applying. If you engage, we'll talk you through that and figure out how that all works. And because we need to have the answers, because we know a lot of these people and we don't want to steer them the wrong way.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
That's very fair.
Okay, perfect. Again, Buzz, thank you. Thank you so much to the members. Good luck, Scott. Good luck, Jason. Enjoy your life, because I was a selectman and I enjoyed it after I left. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Okay.
All right. Good
Bye-bye.
night. Thank you. Good luck.
Good night.
Thank you.
Becca, we're a few minutes after our next was supposed to have joined us, and I don't see anyone in the attendees group. Have you heard from anyone?
Yeah, he's actually popped in once or twice. I think he's trying to avoid, watching. So I think if we just hang out for a minute, he'll probably pop back up.
That's fine. That's fine. And I would suggest we not have a discussion about who we just interviewed, so we can hold our discussions until the end.
I will say I'm learning a lot about what this process is going to be like by listening to people who have done it a lot of times. That's very helpful.
It's an interesting process. I mean, Northborough, as having stable administration for so many years, hasn't gone through this as a town in a long time. About 20 years ago, I went through it when I lived in my old town. So I was on a search committee there for a town administrator, and it's the process really hasn't changed from what I can tell, but will be different too. But we don't have any other code words or things for fifth graders. I'm sorry, Scott.
Why I keep glancing at the participant screen to see if Mike rejoins.
Yeah.
So is the next one these people? Is that the right packet to have? Okay, quiz everyone. What's the code word?
Liver.
Very good. A memory test for you.
No,
Supposed to give
parenti. I'm
three
sure it's
things.
parenti.
That's the next code word.
Oh,
Does the chief know he's the code word?
No, he has no idea. No idea. I thought he would get a kick out of it, but we happened to do it at a meeting that he's not present at, so that's too bad. But does anyone play the guitar? Sing? Piano? No.
Oh,
But
nothing.
if you have a quote, we could discuss.
I came unprepared. No quote. Yeah.
today at lunch at work, speaking with a younger colleague who is familiar with the movie The Usual Suspects. And I just asked the question, do you know where that phrase comes from? And he was not familiar with Casablanca. Round up the usual suspect.
Right. Wow, that makes you feel kind of old, I suppose. We watched Casablanca when I was like at my college orientation or something. And I mean, it was an old movie then, but it was like everyone had heard of it and we all got gathered in the theater and we watched it, and I don't know.
We need to have a remake maybe so that the young people can see it.
Let's not talk about remaking classic films. That would get controversial.
I would say you need a bait and switch where all the marketing is for current actors, and then when they actually go in the theater and watch it, you just show them the original Casablanca and
Yeah,
lock
there
the
you go.
doors so they can't leave until the movie's over.
That's kind of evil.
Force feeding culture, right?
Yeah.
I just spoke with Mike from GovHR. He's on his way in. He's logging
Great.
in now, so he should be here soon.
Right.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mike. If you could, there we go.
There we go.
You've taken care of your camera and your microphone all by yourself. Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. My name is Mitch Cohen. I chair the select board here in Northborough. We won't go around the room introducing ourselves because you see all of our names up on the screen. But we appreciate you joining us tonight. And why don't we start by you introducing yourselves and tell us anything that you want to tell us, whether it be presentation or speeches or anything else, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Okay, so I'll start by presenting myself, and then I do have a PowerPoint that I could load up if you want, and go through that and answer any questions. So first off, my name is Mike Gillette, and I'm a lifelong resident of Massachusetts. I served 36 years in the public sector. I worked for the City of Boston Assessing Department as a manager. I went to Bellingham and served 2.5 years as their first town administrator. And I spent the last 32 years in Westwood, Massachusetts as their town administrator. So I've got a lot of experience in Massachusetts, currently serving as the interim, I was serving as the interim town manager in Wayland, where I did the recruitment as well. And then the interim that they had left, and they asked me if I'd stay on to assist the assistant, which they were moving up to be the town manager, be the interim town manager for the remainder of the time. So that's about me. I joined GovHR 3 years ago and started doing recruitments. So I've got a lot of experience. As I said, 34 years as a hiring person, the main hiring person in 2 municipalities. And I've now got 3 years of doing recruitments in New England and Maine, Vermont, and Connecticut, as well as Massachusetts. So if you want, I'll load up my, just going to see how to do that here. Share screen. And so now, oh boy. So why don't I just go through it, because
That's fine.
I'm not sure exactly. I've not shared a screen. Usually it gets shared on. Oftentimes it gets shared on your end.
I think it is. Yeah, we're now seeing your screen.
Now seeing my screen. Let me see if
Just seeing the Zoom web browser window.
yeah, I got it. Okay. Thank you very much for being patient. So I'll go start going through this. GovHR is a female business enterprise that running out of the state of Illinois. It's run by 2 females, Heidi and Joellen. You may know Joellen. Joellen served 4 years in the town of Northborough at the beginning of her career in the Selectmen's office as an assistant to the town administrator, as the acting town administrator, and finally as the town administrator, as the assistant town administrator. Our team at GovHR are all professionals. We all work primarily in municipal government in some fashion. Many of us were either police chiefs or fire chiefs or town managers, town administrators, city managers, HR personnel. So we all come to the public sector. We take great pride in working in a public sector. I just introduced myself. I won't repeat this. The only thing I'll just say is that I don't take on a lot of clients at any given time. I like to I'm retired now. I've been retired for 3 years. I like to do the recruiting, spend the time that's necessary in doing the recruiting, keeping myself very flexible. And then if I need to play a round of golf, I'll go play a round of golf. But that allows me a great amount of flexibility to assist the communities that I work with. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this for, I enjoy doing, keeping myself busy and in the public sector profession. I will be the face of the company, working with you directly. But in the background, there are a whole host of people in Illinois who work on various aspects of this. There'll be a person in Illinois who specializes in coming up with really nice brochures. There's a person in Illinois that will assist me with doing the advertisement and finding emails and people to reach out to for the position. There'll be people that do background checks. They'll be doing references or being media searches or doing the deep dive when we get to the finalists into the background of the individuals. So we have specialists at every stage of the process. You won't be relying on me to do all of the things. I don't do them well. I do one thing well. We have 39 recruiting consultants located throughout the United States. We're in 41 states in the United States. We're well known in the industry, and we're by the clients and by the candidates. And we're active in the ICMA, the National Federation for Black Public Administrators, and also the local. I had it written down here. Local Government Hispanic Network. So, and many other state associations. We advertise very effectively. We know where we can get good results. We have 11,000 visitors to our Career Center every month. We have 7,000 job seekers that we receive our email weekly about any current postings that we have. We have 9,448 management contacts in our database with phone numbers and emails. We actively work on LinkedIn with their search engine, and we're out on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn with 20,000 followers. So we're known. We are out there advertising, and we're very active in the industry. I'll just go through quickly what the process is like. If we were to be hired, I'd meet with whoever you determine I should meet with. I will talk to them about how they want to go forward with the process. We'll talk about such things as, do they want me to come out and do a public forum with your citizens? Do they want me to come out and meet with or survey your staff, your department heads? I will meet with you. I assume that all the 5 of you are the selectmen. I'll meet individually with you on Zoom and talk to you about what you're looking for. From that, I will develop a timeline for the job. I'll develop a brochure and a position announcement that's geared toward the person that you're looking for. I'll be specifically identifying traits and skills and explaining what it would be like to work in Northborough. We'll then post that with the sources that you approve, and we'll conduct extensive emails. I will then, when the candidates come in, I'll identify candidates that I think are most qualified from their paperwork. I'll conduct a Zoom interview with them, get more information, get a general sense of what the candidates are like. and what they're looking for and what their availability is. For instance, one of the important things that happens in this process is we're catching people at various stages of the process. So we may have a candidate that's now currently being conducting final interviews for other positions that they've applied for, and they're just applying for this position. And I'll try and gauge, which of the positions, which of the candidates are really good, and try to gauge as to, how quickly we might need to move. And if I saw a particularly exceptional candidate, I might come back and say, we really need to push this thing along, or actually gear up to push it along a little bit faster. The most recent process that I did, they wanted the first, we had projected that we would be finishing up the process and hiring somebody in the middle of January. And they asked me, could you get it done quicker? We've been without a town manager for some time now. Really want to move this thing along. Can you do it? Can you get something done quicker? And I got it done before Christmas, that sort of thing. After I conduct my Zoom interviews or prepare a report, help whoever is on the committee that's selecting the candidates for interviews, for the semifinal interviews. I'll help schedule and facilitate those interviews. I'll help with the development of a script. Then I'll assist that group, whoever it is that's conducting interviews, to select the candidates they want to pass on as the finalists for the position. Once we've done that back in Illinois, they'll be doing deep dive into their background to make sure that these candidates are clean, that their financial records are, that there are no arrest records, really get into the background of these individual candidates. Then we'll schedule the final interviews, help with the script again, help with all the setup. If people are coming in from out of state, I'll help manage that. Usually the final interviews is more than just an interview. It's, come to the community, meet with the staff, get a tour of the community, probably do a reception to introduce the candidates to the community, and then a final interview. And at each of those stages, I try to collect information that I'll present to the select board once you've had your interviews and had your first discussion. I hold back on that other information, then I add that in on top of what you have come to, because it's sort of a confirmation or pushes you a little bit about what you thought you saw, and it helps with the discussion and to make a good choice. And then after that, once you've selected a candidate, I can assist with the negotiation to get involved in the process of transitioning the person in, coming up with a contract that's acceptable to both parties. Usually a person in the middle can help in that regard. And then finally, I'll notify all the applicants that applied for the position of the final outcome so that they know that it's closed and what the outcome was. So that's quickly the process that I follow when I do these interviews, these recruitments. Again, we do our due diligence. We interview by Zoom of all the candidates that we think are good. We do Google, internet, social media checks. We do 2 references at the beginning, and then we do a couple more references at the end. And we present to you, every candidate, a list of all the candidates that have applied, so you know it's been a clean process. And we will tell you why we didn't select a particular candidate. But it may be as broad as, we did a background check on this individual and we found that they did this, and we don't think that you want that type of person. So we do background screening, criminal history. This is of the finalists now. Criminal history, social security verification, credit, education, etc. We look in the news media on all the interviewed the finalist candidates. We do 2 more reference checks of those finalists, and then we will conduct testing, if you like, of the interviewed candidates. we're your team if you want us. We have a thorough understanding of the position through what you tell us. We develop a recruitment strategy with you and how you want to approach it. We guide you through the entire process. We're there for everything that you need to get through it correctly. We provide the best practices in the interviews. We'll provide you with lists of questions that you can select from and help you with the development of other questions that are particularly of interest to your community. We facilitate the interview process with multiple groups, and we assist in the negotiations at the end. We have a guarantee, 2 guarantees actually. We'll stay with you until the process is done. I've had a couple of instances where the first round didn't work and we did a second round. You won't be charged for my time in the second round. You won't be charged for anybody's time in the second round. The only charge in the second round would be advertising costs if we need to do that, and expenses. And then we also guarantee that if after a year or before a year's up, it doesn't work out with the candidate that you've selected and you need to go out again, we will conduct another search free of charge. Only charge would be the advertising and expense costs. Our track record is really good. We've done 1,000 recruitments throughout the United States at all levels of government, to department heads up through municipal association executive directors and local government officials. 3% of those recruitments have activated a guarantee that we have. So that's my presentation. I hope I have the opportunity to work with Northborough, and I'm perfectly happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mike. If you'd like, you can stop sharing your screen and
Okay.
we'll ask you some questions.
Oh, there it is. Stop share. Good. There we go.
Great. All right, so we each have a question or two. I'll go first. And this is about input from stakeholders in the community. How will you ensure that the select board and other internal stakeholder input is included in the recruitment process? And related to that, what is some of your experience getting input from the public, and how would that work?
So very important to interview each member of the Board of Selectmen and get your individual thoughts on what you're looking for a position. I think that's critical. The person's going to be working directly for you. You're the appointing authority. I like to reach out to the staff. Sometimes I've done a number of my recruitments in COVID. So, a lot of it was done on Zoom. A lot of it was done through surveys. And some of it of late has been done by coming out to the community and meeting with the individuals in public forums for residents, and in meetings with department heads to get a sense for what they're looking for themselves. Department heads and the board, as you can well imagine, are going to have slightly different wants out of the next town administrator, but you're all after the same thing. So they're interested in how they're going to be treated and how they're going to be relied on, and whether or not they're going to be able to do their job and not be micromanaged. And you are interested in their ability to do all that, to give you what you're looking for in a way of what you're trying to accomplish for the community. So it all works together, but the two parties have slightly different views on things. And that's why at the end of the process, I like to have the interviews done, have the department heads come and interview the candidates. And then at the end, I ask them for their opinions. I don't ask them for who they want. I ask them for their opinions on each of the candidates. And I bring that back to you in written form to basically say, this is what they're feeling. This is what the sense they got of the candidates. So you're informed. You're informed as to how they feel about the candidates, and whether or not, in one instance, I can remember the candidates basically said, we wouldn't work for this guy. And the board felt the same way, and then so it was, but hopefully that doesn't happen with the finalists we bring. And
Thank
then
you.
with the community, again, I'd meet with the community or do a survey, whatever you want me to do.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah.
Julianne, you're up next.
Hi, so Mike, my question is, what methods you use to get members to buy into a shared vision or direction in selecting the next town administrator? This would come from the, you know, the well-known fact that not everybody has the same opinion, and how do you get people together to have a little consensus?
Well, you know, we get the opinions of everybody. We incorporate best we can the general opinion of all the groups in the beginning, so we have an idea of what we're looking for and what we want. And then at the end, you know, the process is such that I find you do it yourselves. I mean, the discussion and everybody hearing each other's opinions sort of forms who, in fact, the consensus is as to who to hire. I don't remember one time where I had a vote for an alternative candidate. At the end of the process, each time they've focused on one and then made it unanimous. And so, you know, I'm sitting in the background listening to you, and I may say some things that help bring it together, but oftentimes I just let the process work because you are familiar with each other and you're familiar with each other's opinions and can come to a consensus. You do it on all other things, and I think you do it on, well, my experience is you do it on the selection of the next town administrator.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott.
Yeah, hi, Mike, and thanks for your presentation and interest in this. My question is if there's anything the board members can do during this process to help increase the level of interest and the quality of the candidates, the type of actions that we might be able to take to help in this process.
Well, one of the things that would be very helpful for me would be if you know of candidates or hear of candidates that you think would be a nice fit for the community. That is great information for me and very helpful, because I will reach out to them personally through email and phone calls to encourage them to apply. You know, if I get a signal, there's a person we would seriously consider, I convey that. And then that usually results, because the way the process works oftentimes, and I sat in this chair for 32 years, looked at other job opportunities, not that I didn't apply from time to time, but I really liked where I was, so I didn't really want to leave. But a lot of candidates are sitting back and they're looking at the job ad and go, that would be interesting, but they're busy. And you know, change is tough, and so they don't make the application. And then suddenly somebody apply, and that's oftentimes what happened to me. Somebody reached out, the recruiter reached out and said, "Hey, Mike, you interested?" And okay, well, let me throw my hat in the ring. And so, yeah, I think it makes a big difference to do that. And any help you can give me as to a direction where you would go. The other thing is keep getting along, as I'm sure you do, and running a good tight ship. I can tell you reputations are very important in this business, in encouraging candidates. And so keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a good job. You guys have a good reputation, and that's important.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for coming
Hey,
tonight. What strategies do you employ to get applications from diverse candidates? I saw that you those things with the long acronyms you had,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
would you like to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, so GovHR prides itself in diversity. It's female-owned company, and they take great pride in that. We do special efforts. I worked in a community in Vermont. I won't name the name, but it is the most diverse community in all of northern New England. They have a lot of refugees, and they told me right up front, we want diverse candidates in this pool of applicants. And I took that seriously. I made a special effort, not that I discouraged other, I kept it diverse. So that included, your normal candidates, but I really did apply myself to try and get diverse candidates. At the end of the day, we ended up with a African-American female candidate. We ended up with an Asian American female candidate. We ended up with a consultant female candidate that practiced or a consulting firm did mostly diversity in municipal government. And I ended up with a male Hispanic candidate. Those were the finalists for that position. So it's, I won't say that it was all my doing, but I think I did help in that regard, and we were fortunate. The community was also known for wanting to have diversity too, and that encouraged it. So all of that came together, and we really achieved what they were looking for. We make special effort to find diversity. It's become increasingly important.
Yeah, it is. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Mike. Thank you for your submission, your interest and your presence here tonight to respond to our questions. How do you handle the situation where, say, the screening committee in earlier rounds or the board in the final round with candidates does not have a shared opinion or is unable to reach a consensus? At what point do you intervene, or how do you facilitate that situation to arrive at a selection of a candidate?
Well, the way I approach the end of the process is that I encourage discussion. So I recommend to the board that they start with each one going around and talking about the candidates and what each one of them felt like. So in the process of doing that, you're formulating your own thoughts about the candidate, and everybody else is hearing your thoughts, and that's informing them further on their thoughts. And so by going around one time at least of everybody's opinion, that sort of starts building consensus. And then, as I said, when you've done that, I then give you the opinion of the staff, and I give you the opinion. If you agree, one of the things I've started doing is we have a community reception for the 3 candidates. We ask them to make a little presentation, and then we ask them to mingle, and we tell them right up front that is going to be how you're going to be assessed. And then I've developed this app, or the staff back in Illinois developed it for me, that we use the QR code to bring up a survey. And so immediately after, we ask all the people to fill out the survey about each of the candidates and their impression that they got from the candidates. And then that automatically gets into a result that in the process, at the end of the process, I share with the board members. I just tell them, take your phone and hit this link and read through what the survey results were of the reception we held last night, which usually happens. And so they're informed there. And then we do another round robin about, okay, now how do you feel about the candidates? Now you've heard each other, and now that you've heard the opinion of others, how do you feel? And I'm telling you, every time we go through this process, it ends up. Now, I've seen changes in opinions. The community that I work for worked for, we got all the diverse communities. They basically started out with one candidate as a preferred candidate. After they heard the opinion of the community, they ended up, and it was, they felt good about both candidates, but they ended up going with the other candidate because the community really liked the other candidate, and they were really devoted to what the community wanted. That was important to them. So, I think that it's just that working together and listening to each other helps bring you to consensus as to what would best fit.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julianne, you have one final question, please.
I do. So have you ever had an unsuccessful recruitment where you assisted with selection of a candidate and it didn't quite work out? And if you did, what were the lessons learned?
So unsuccessful means there are two levels of unsuccess. So I'll just start there. There's one level that they don't ever get a candidate, and that hasn't happened. I've had two that I had to go out with a second time, and in the one instance, two candidates that we brought, we had a dropout that was a really good candidate. We brought two candidates in, and neither one of them kind of measured up. And oftentimes, you having one or two candidates that are really spectacular that's a godsend. And when that spectacular one drops out, that can be a problem. And so we went out again, and they were very happy. I can't tell you how happy they were with the candidate they finally selected. So that was success. The second one that I had, similar. The first round of candidates didn't pan out. They wanted to go out again. We went out again. We had a spectacular candidate identified. They loved this person. This person called me up. Well, I called her when I found out that the town she lived in happened to be in Colorado. And you've heard about this. It was last, not this past Christmas, the Christmas before, burnt. Half the town burnt down to the ground. And she had just left that job to look for another job. She wanted to come back to Maine because her family was from there. And she called me up, and when I talked to her, she says, Mike, if you offered me the job today, or they offered me the job today, I wouldn't take it because I can't leave. And I told the board, well, the council, actually, I told the council, look, you got to give her a month and a half just to, and they gave her a month and a half. That's my suggestion. And I went back and I invited her to a final interview. And then she called me up. I was on my way. I was going on vacation with my wife down to Florida to visit my son. And she called me while I was sitting in the airport waiting for the plane and crying in tears, saying, Mike, I can't come for the final interview. I can't leave here. Now, she called me later, 6 months later, and I helped guide her into a job that she ended up in Maine. But, she was one of those spectacular candidates. Well, at the end of the day, we only had one candidate left. They were not impressed by her, but they had an interim who had been their finance director. They were promoted to the interim. And I found out that the manager who had left, they really loved. And as she was walking out the door, they asked her, who would you appoint to the position? And she said the finance director. So they just went with the finance director, signed a contract for 3 years, and all's good. And I advised them that their assistant currently, who had just started the job, I said, you just hold on to her, because 3 years from now, when the other one leaves, you don't even have to call me. Just hire her. She'll be great. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mike. That concludes the questions that we had for you. Do you have any questions for us?
So, yeah, I saw your past. John is currently going to be the town manager in the town I'm currently sitting in.
Okay.
So good for John. And again, you guys have a good reputation, so you're gonna do well out there. What's your time frame? Do you have an interim person that's gonna fit in, because I guess John's gonna be starting here pretty soon, I think, or, yeah. in
John's
another
last
month or
day
so.
here in Northborough is the 31st of this month, and I think he
Yeah.
has about a week off between positions. No, we'd be looking for some help finding an
Yeah.
interim.
Yeah. Well, if I can help out with that, I'd be happy to see do what we can to help out. I mean, as I indicated, I did the recruitment in a community, and then they ended up asking me if I'd stay on for part-time, and I have been, so. But I'm not into that, but I know other people that are.
Thank you.
So, yeah, well, thanks. I hope that we have the opportunity to do a recruitment together. It'd be fun.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank
very much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
you,
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Now how to get out. Yeah,
Very good. Becca, I see a couple of people waiting in the wings. I think they're both from Community Paradigm, correct?
Yes, I will bring them in.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the Northborough Select Board meeting. Bernie, you and I have met a couple of times, but I'll introduce myself because I don't believe I know Sharon. My name is Mitch Cohen. I chair the Northborough Select Board, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. We won't go around the virtual room and introduce ourselves because you see all of our names on the Zoom. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and give whatever introduction or presentation you'd like to give, and then we'll have some questions for you following that.
Great. Well, first at the outset, let me thank you for inviting us into this process and having us here tonight to speak with you about Community Paradigm and what we may be able to do to help you in your process of finding a new town administrator. And I can see we're now being joined by John Petrin, also of Community Paradigm. So our team is here now. So again, great to be here. Just by way of background about Community Paradigm, about each one of us, so you have a sense of we provided our resumes, so we won't go into a tremendous amount of detail. But why don't I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what I bring I think to the table in terms of helping the town of Northborough, and then I'll have Sharon and John talk a little bit about themselves. Again, we won't go into a whole history of our lives, but a little bit about our backgrounds and how we work into the process. My background's in municipal government. John will tell you the same thing about himself. I've been in the business now for about 40 or so years. Primarily, though, 30 of those were as a town manager, city manager. I was the town manager of Chelmsford for about 20 years, and then I became the city manager of the city of Lowell for almost 8 years, which is a long period of time to be a city manager in Lowell. It's about double the typical lifespan of a manager. So I'm very proud of that. In addition to what I was able to accomplish with the team that we had in place, a lot of good things happening in the city of Lowell. But we were able to really build that team and build a track record of success. I love municipal government, but in 2014, I made the decision to leave the city of Lowell to do some different things. I was teaching at the time at the UMass Lowell in the political science department, had been for about 30 years at that point, and had the opportunity to join the Suffolk University faculty in the public administration program associated or affiliated with the Massachusetts Municipal Association and the local government certificate program, the program that's really been designed to create the new generation of managers. I was interested in doing some consulting with communities, primarily public management consulting. I figured go in, help a community solve problems, maybe do a little bit of interim work here and there. But it became very clear that there was a generational shift that was happening as the baby boomers were all leaving the municipal management profession. And I was asked to do some recruiting. I was asked by a community, in fact, that I had done a little bit of interim work with at the request of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the town of Winchendon. They needed someone to come in, help sort of set the things straight. And they asked me at the same time to help them find a manager. That led to a couple of other communities reaching out. And before I knew it, we were providing recruiting services across the Commonwealth. Since 2015, as I indicated in our proposal, we've become the most active municipal recruiting firm in the state. We've done close to 100 municipal manager positions across the state, large communities, small communities, we've touched all four corners of the state in terms of the communities that we've served and the types of communities that we've served. And I think we have a record of success. We've done, that's in terms of manager positions. We've also done a number of department head positions, state, quasi-state agency positions. We've actually done work for the town of Northborough in the past. We were involved with the Council on Aging Director, the Principal Assessor, the Library Director, the Health Agent, and the Assistant Town Administrator. So we know Northborough from that work, and we'd be very excited to have the opportunity to work with the board in finding a new town administrator to replace John Kadir as he's leaving to go to Foxborough. But that's a little bit about my background. Again, primarily up the Merrimack Valley, though I grew up just down the street in Ashland and Framingham, so I know the area a little bit from my time down that way. And but why don't I ask Sharon to talk a little bit about herself, and then I'll talk, and John, and then we'll talk a little bit about our process.
Sure. Thank you all for having us tonight. We appreciate your time. My background is mainly communications and marketing, and I spent over 25 years as a newspaper reporter, city editor, editorial page editor, working at the state and local level. So watching municipalities from that aspect. And then when this opportunity arose, when Bernie Lynch started this company, I came on pretty soon thereafter, and have been involved in over 100 searches, assisting in various ways. Mainly I work on communications, marketing materials, doing a lot of the background work, interviewing people, talking to department heads, talking to board members, trying to build our knowledge of the community, get a little deeper dive in. So that's pretty much what I do. And I've also taught at the community college level, marketing courses, communications, and business courses.
John.
So my background's a little similar to Bernie. I retired in 2019 as a town administrator. My last posting was town of Burlington, but I grew up in Bellingham down the street, and I live in Bolton just up the street, but I was a resident of Marlborough for 20 years. And I'm still involved in the area, so I'm on the Boys and Girls Club of Metro West Board of Directors, have been for 30 years, and involved on the Board of Directors for Neshoba Neighbors out of Berlin, Bolton, and Lancaster. So involved in that. So again, I was a town administrator for almost 35 years. Also did a stint for 4 years as the assistant superintendent of schools for the city of Marlborough. Again, I've got the two sides, of the equation, having been an assistant superintendent and a town administrator. So a lot of the searches I've been involved since 2019. I've had about 25 searches I've been involved with the firm, with Bernie and Sharon. I do a lot of the Central Mass area and work with candidates in Central Mass. Right now, I'm involved in Hopedale, Rutland, as a couple of areas in the Central Mass. So that's my background. I'm also involved. I'm the coordinator for the MMA Suffolk program. So I served as a coordinator and teach within that program as well. So in the finance seminar and the certificate program. So we're involved with a lot of municipal employees on a year-to-year basis. So in that program, we're dealing with 150 municipal employees every year coming through the program in which they're participating as students in there. So that's a bit of my background. And again, I'll be assisting the firm with the search.
Yep. And just to add on for John a little bit, that he sells himself a little short there. John was a prior president of the Massachusetts Municipal Association and of the Massachusetts Municipal Management Association, and still very involved with the organization in a variety of capacities. So we have that connection to the Municipal Association and the MMA itself. So. So let me just talk a little bit, if I could, and again, I know it's been a long night for you, so a lot of this information is already in the proposal, and we want to get to your questions. But if I could, really focusing in on what John and Sharon were just talking about with their backgrounds and my own background, and how we come in and how we do a recruitment. And again, I think we have a record of success based upon the number of communities that we've done searches for over the last, I say 7 years, but it's really been more like 5 or 6 years that we've done most of that work. We completed that first search in Winchendon in the December of 15, and here we are in March of 2023, and we've got that number of that I've indicated in the 90s and edging ever close to that 100 search mark in terms of municipal managers. And we've done a number of communities around you, Hudson, Shrewsbury was one of our first, actually. Grafton was another one that we did. All in that general area. So we know that area of the state pretty well. Your first priority, as I indicated in our proposal, and I know that you have on your mind, is with John leaving towards the end of the month, you're going to need an interim. We're prepared to come in. We already have identified about 10 people that may have some interest in being your interim administrator. So we've already started to sort of do some work. Of course, we have to be careful because we're not under contract to you at this point in time. Hopefully you will choose us, but we've been reluctant to go too far with providing information other than to say, are you interested in being an interim town administrator in the general Metro West area? And so we have a number of people that we're ready to talk to see if they can help you, because you need to fill that position, and you need to fill that position quickly. So that's a sort of a different. We've done this with a number of communities, but it's not something that's done in every community that we have to find an interim administrator. But we're prepared to work with you in moving that forward. Our first step, whenever we go into a community, as Sharon pointed out, is to learn about the community. We're very quick, John and I were very quick to tell you that we know Northborough pretty well. We've done work there, with the department head positions that you've had. We are familiar with the region. We're familiar with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in general. So, we can go to any community and talk about how we know it. But we're going to say that when we go into Northborough, we're going to come in as if we know nothing. We want to learn from you as board members. We want to learn from the department heads. And we want to learn from the public. What are the issues facing the town of Northborough that you think are important, that you think you need to have someone that is well-versed, trained, experienced in dealing with those issues? Someone that we're going to find for the town of Ipswich, which we just did, that it's dealing with coastal resilience. We're also working with the town of Hull right now, and that's a top priority for them as they're coping with that. It's going to be different than a community that we're dealing with that has agricultural issues or rural development issues or economic development issues associated with a downtown area that is gutted and vacant, like some of the older mill communities. That's different than Northborough. We know enough to know that Northborough doesn't fit into either one of those categories. But we want to learn from you. We want to learn from the department heads. We want to learn from the public. What are the issues? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? What are the traits What are the qualities that you're looking for from your next town administrator? Being a town administrator today in 2023 is different than being a town administrator in 1995. You know, different skill set, different qualities, different approach to handling the issues. So we want to understand what you're looking for. And we think that's crucial in helping you find candidates, helping assess candidates on our own as we're trying to bring candidates forward to you, and working with your screening committee and with you in assessing those candidates to determine, do they meet the requirements and needs of the town of Northborough? So this is a good portion of the work that Sharon does, and John will be doing, as well as myself, in terms of talking to you and understanding what you're looking for. In this case, we would use Sharon's background in journalism in a very friendly way. We've all had our encounters with the media in the past, but we're going to use Sharon's skills to really delve in and spend time talking to you and discussing with you what you're looking for. And out of that, we'll call it a report, but it's really a position statement that assembles information about the town, assembles information about those challenges, the opportunities, the attributes, and information about the position. What is the authority that's given to the position under the Northborough form of government? Assembling all of that into a position statement. I believe I sent you on 3 or 4 versions of statements that we've done for Hudson, Grafton, and I can't recall maybe Sudbury, which is relatively recent, where we've assembled that information. And there's a lot of information there. We are very big on using hyperlinks. We don't want to give the candidates all of the information. We want them to go in and research and do their own work. But we want to lead them in the direction of understanding what Northborough is and what Northborough wants and what Northborough needs. So that's step number 1, spending that preparatory time to build that position statement that you will approve, you will discuss, you will approve. Just last night, the town of Hull approved theirs, and that position has been posted today. Then we go out and we do our search. We don't just advertise the position. It's easy enough. I said that Hull was approved last night. Hull's been advertised now. It's in the, I don't know if it's up on the MMA site right now, but if it's not today, it will be tomorrow. In addition to that, it'll be posted in the International City and County Management Association tomorrow. It'll be posted with the Emerging Local Government Leaders Organization within the next day or so. It'll be distributed to the graduate programs, public administration programs across the region within the next few days. It'll be distributed to every manager in the Commonwealth, every member of the Municipal Managers Association. It will be sent out to the National Forum for Black Public Administrators, Boston chapter. It will be sent out to the Women Leading Government Organization, very active organization. I just had the opportunity to speak at the Women Leading Government annual conference this past just a couple of weeks ago, we work closely. In fact, one of the founding members will be joining the firm within the next couple of months, very excited to have her coming on board. But we'll be doing that outreach, and we'll be making phone calls. We'll be doing active recruitment. It isn't just a position, an act of posting a position and waiting for things to come in. John, Sharon, and I have already started talking about, okay, if Northborough chooses us, who are we going after? Who would be right based upon what we know? Again, we want to learn more about what you want, but we already have ideas of potential candidates that we would want to talk to, bring in. And we do that active recruitment. That whole process takes between the research and the preparatory work and talking to people and doing a community survey that we utilize in pretty much every community now. We'll get all that information over the span of about 3 weeks, thereabouts, get that statement done, then go out and do the real active recruitment over a period of 4 weeks. And then we assembled all of that information, all the resumes, all the applicants. We assess which ones meet the needs, which ones would be right for the town of Northborough, which ones would be wrong for the town of Northborough, and those that are sort of in between. There are a number of candidates that we're going to give you the background of those people and tell you where they might fit, where they might not fit, and where there's some that might be worth a second look that you might not otherwise look at in working with your screening committee that we anticipate that you will be using. So we try to provide them with guidance, our knowledge of the candidates. John mentioned, I meant to talk about this a little bit, that, in terms of our network, we do all of that outreach, but we have a network built up of hundreds of people that have been interested in serving in local government here in Massachusetts. Many of the people that have gone through the Suffolk program, that next generation we've talked about, there are about 400 or 500 now, I think, that have gone through that program over the last number of years, that we know are ready to move into these types of positions. So we'll go out and we'll try to encourage many of those to look at this position. But in any event, we get to the point with the screening committee, we will give them every single resume. If that's what you want us to do, which is what most communities do, we will give them every single resume, walk them through those resumes, walk them through the qualities of each candidate, and then help them find the 6 to 8 people that are worthy of an interview. And we will work with the committee on developing questions, developing scenarios, exercises as is deemed necessary, and then guide them through that interview process that we will then manage from start to finish, with the goal being that they will then choose 3 to 4 people to send on to the board. And then we do an extra step. We go in with that preliminary information that we have about the candidates, that we know their backgrounds and we know their histories. But then once they're chosen as finalists, once again, that's where Sharon's work, as well as John and myself, we start contacting the references that they provide us. That is more than just a 5-minute conversation with those references to determine whether they meet the necessary qualifications. We spend anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes with these references, talking about the candidates' backgrounds, their character, the types of projects that they've worked on, the types of skills that they have, any weaknesses that they may have, because we want to develop a full picture. So we develop a report that we then give to the board as you begin your consideration of these candidates, based upon the information that we receive. And it's amazing what the information that we are able to get out of these references about the candidates, so that you go in not only just asking general questions about the financial management skills, but actually talking to the candidates about a particular financial issue that community that they may be working in has had, that they would, and how they dealt with it, so that you aren't just talking about this in an abstract, but in the actual issues that they may have dealt with. And that allows for a much more productive interaction with the candidates. We do, as I indicated in our proposal, we have optional services that we can work with you on in terms of community forums where they can meet the public, meeting with staff. Some communities would like to include that. Some do not necessarily feel that that's important. We'll work with you on all of that. We guide you through the interview process, working with that reference information, the background information that we have. And then we try to work with you in terms of building a consensus around candidates. We make ourselves available to discuss the candidates one-on-one with each board member as needed. And in the end, bring you to a successful conclusion that you have a candidate that you're excited about, that you're confident about, and that can hit the ground running coming into the town of Northborough. So that's it. That's our process. It's very similar, probably in sound, to the way other firms would be doing this. But I think what makes us particularly unique is the success that we've had in customizing it to the individual communities. It sounds like we have this set down to a science, and it is, but it's not so cookie cutter that we don't make alterations as we go through based upon the specific needs of the community. And we look at this as a partnership. We're here to be your partner to help you find the right town administrator, and hopefully you would look at us in the same way. So I'll stop there and really open it up for questions and discussion. I could go on forever and ever, so I realize that about myself.
Thank you very much, Bernie. So we each have some questions. I'll take the liberty of going first. This relates to input from important stakeholders. How would you ensure that the select board and staff and other internal stakeholders are included in the recruitment process? And then separate but related public input. How would you solicit public input for this, and how have you done so in the past?
Sure. We do two, I guess, a number of different things here. One, in terms of, as the chief elected officials of the town and the chief executives of the board of the community, your input is arguably the most crucial. You're the ones that have been entrusted with leading the town forward in terms of its values, in terms of its policies and policy direction. So we spend time with each and every one of you. We sit down, we do take advantage, I will tell you, we do take advantage of this technology. So we would do a Zoom interview with each one of you individually, so that we hear what you as an individual board member feel about the direction of the town and what you're looking for from a town administrator. We do a questionnaire with each one of the department heads. That's one of the first things we do, is we get that questionnaire out. A lot of it's information based, but just aspects of their particular department, number of employees, the unions that are represented, the projects that they're working on. But we also look for information about what they think is important about what they're looking for from the next town administrator, the qualities that they're looking for. And we make ourselves available to speak with each one of them if they so choose. Some department heads, though, don't get to choose whether they talk to us. Some department heads, we insist that we speak with them. We want to talk to the finance people. So we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk to your town accountant. We're going to want to talk to your planner people. We're going to want to talk to your chiefs, your public works director, sort of the larger departments that sort of have sort of a more evident impact upon the town government. That's not to say that every other department doesn't as well. Those that serve the community through community services like libraries, council on aging, health, they're all crucial to what town government does. So we make ourselves available, but for the candidates looking to come into Northborough, they're going to want to know about the finances, the infrastructure, the public safety needs, the development needs of the town. We're going to spend quite a bit of time talking with them. As far as the public goes, we have done community forums. That used to be sort of our trademark. Other firms now do this, have now incorporated this as part of what they do. We've done it from the beginning. We're big fans of community engagement. And so we've done community forums. We were sort of forced into doing Zoom community forums back during the pandemic. But we can do either one or both of those. We find that we get greater participation in Zoom than we do in person, but we find we get the greatest amount of feedback from community surveys. We're doing a community survey right now in the town of Hull that has, I believe, about 250 respondents so far. That's a far cry from the days when we used to do community forums in towns of 30 to 40,000 people, where we get 6 people show up at a meeting. We're getting much more engagement through that questionnaire, through that survey, but we can work with you on some different variations of that, and we would look for the board to work with us on how we want to do that. So in terms of internal stakeholders, and then as we talk to you, we may find some other people that we want to talk to that are perhaps not internal stakeholders, but they're stakeholders within the community that you may think are important for us to talk to. Obviously, we can't talk to every resident of the town one-on-one, but we can talk to a number of people that you think are important, or that as we go through this, we find are necessary to really do the job effectively. And we would do that. And that's at the outset. As I indicated, we work at the end of the process as well, where we can talk to the community, we can engage the community and the staff in the process as well.
Thank you very much. Julianne. Oh, Julianne, you are muted.
Okay, thanks. Thank you all for coming. My question deals with building consensus. So what methods would you use to get members to buy into a shared vision or direction in selecting the next town administrator? How do you get differing opinions to come to that one final vision?
Sure. Again, I go back to it, that what I think is particularly unique may be a little strong, but if you look at that position profile that we put together, that really is designed. I often, and I didn't say it in tonight's meeting, but I generally do, that we look at that position, the development of that position statement, as a product. Clearly, it's in digital form, but it's something that people can read. It's something that's written, but more than anything, it's a process. It's a process of bringing together each one of your thoughts and the thoughts of the other stakeholders around that vision and building that consensus about what you want, what you think, what Northborough and what the board thinks is important for the next town administrator to be. So that then when you assess the candidates, you have that document that you have developed. This isn't just us writing this. This is based upon what you give us as feedback of what you think is important in terms of the qualities. When you use that, we can develop, we've done this in other communities. We sort of shy away from the notion of this form that people fill out of the qualities, and I grade them a 4 or a 3 or a 2. But what we do is we give you a sense of what's important to you based upon your input, your feedback, and that's something that then when we discuss the candidates at the end of the process, when the screening committee reviews the candidates, when the board reviews the candidates, you can look to that document and a tool that we can develop out of that, from that document, that's the result of that process, to identify who meets the needs of the community and who meets the needs of the board. And again, we make ourselves available, I won't say 24/7, but pretty close, to talk to individual board members as you're reviewing the candidates. So when the screening committee comes up with their candidates, the screening committee has the advantage of having these really in-depth conversations in executive session because it's a way that the law has been set up to allow for the selection of candidates that is done in a way that's not detrimental to the candidates or to the town. When it gets to the board, you don't necessarily get to have that same luxury. So what we do is we try to make ourselves available to have really intense one-on-one conversations with each one of you, where you're going through the candidates, you say, well, I want to understand why this candidate may have made certain decisions, or I've read the reference report that you provided, and I want to understand this project that they've worked on, or this particular quality that's pointed out. And we try to bring everyone together with those one-on-ones, and then in a open meeting to come together around those shared qualities that have been identified by you and by other stakeholders, including the public, to really meet the needs of the town. So I hope that explains it. But there's a lot of one-on-one sort of discussions and conversations that are built around reaching the qualities that you've identified as being important. So if you've identified someone who is, really important for you at this point in time to have someone that embraces the notion of community engagement, for instance, if that's a quality that you're looking for from the next town administrator by the board, or someone who is focused on building up the sense of teamwork within the department heads. We want to focus in on questions that are geared towards that, and then trying to get you to feel that comfort level with the candidates that you choose, that they check those boxes.
Thank you.
Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And welcome, and thank you for the submission and working with us tonight. A question I have is there anything we as board members and staff can do, actions we can take to increase the quality and the interest of the candidates? How can we help you in this process?
Well, I guess by being engaged with us during that preliminary process, and as you go through it, through the process, being clear about what you're looking for, and any ideas, and it doesn't necessarily have to be names, but if you're able to tell us the type of person that you want, that makes it easier for us then to go out and actually find that type of person. I know that sounds perhaps simplistic, and John and Sharon, if you want to jump in on this, that I'm missing something, but I think it's just so crucial that you engage with us, or whoever your consultant is, to fully understand what you're looking for so that we can tell that story. So that's really that's what it is. People want to be excited with the idea of, I want to be in Northborough. Northborough has a great reputation. It's a prime location. There's some good things happening there. You've got challenges, which there isn't a community out there that doesn't have challenges. Very frankly, I would say, I like the idea as we get into this business as municipal managers oftentimes because of challenges. If it weren't for challenges, I certainly wouldn't have gone to Lowell. Lowell has challenges. That's what excited me about going there. So I want to know, we want to know, what are the challenges? What could excite people about being part of Northborough? That's important. And I think just, again, this isn't a case. We've certainly had communities that we've worked with that have too many challenges, and it perhaps become, seem somewhat dysfunctional. Northborough doesn't fit that. Northborough isn't dysfunctional, so you don't have that problem. what we really need from you is to get a real full understanding of what you're looking for and be able to tell that exciting story about what Northborough can be and what makes you excited to be a member of the board.
Right. Candidates will be watching your meetings and other board meetings. So if they get this sense that the board's really excited about welcoming a new town administrator, that says a lot to the candidates, the potential candidates, that this is a place that they want to be, where they're going to feel welcomed and supported and great things are going to be happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we saw that in, we did the town of Watertown, excuse me, now the city of Watertown. A few months back, and the excitement of that city is palpable of what's happening there with with biotech, with developments that have happened there, and the sort of the new vision of what Watertown is, and the candidates were just really excited to be part of that. So that's important.
Direct assistance can also be if some of you or your department people are talking to others who have shown interest, let us know. So pass the names on to us so that we can make that contact, out there. So you may have folks, a lot of your people have been, involved in things in the past. I've been involved with your police chiefs in the past, going back to Chief Hutchins, through police accreditation. I was the MMA rep to the Mass Police Accreditation Commission for 19 years. So maybe, some of these folks have contacts, out there, and we'll pursue those.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kristen.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight, everyone. What strategies does your firm employ to get applications from diverse candidates?
True. Yeah, we first we take diversity. Diversity is very important. We have a real issue in municipal government, particularly here in Massachusetts, but really all over, that there are groups that are underrepresented. Women, people of color. As I indicated, we're very interested in spreading the word to those underrepresented groups, whether it be through the Women Leading Government Organization, the National Forum for Black Public Administrators, other organizations. There are organizations out there representing other groups that, the Engaging Local Government Leaders organization is another one that's looking to expand out. That's a relatively new, younger organization representing, again, people of color, different sexual orientation, gender identity. So we're trying to spread the net as widely as we can to bring people into the organization of municipal government. That and we work hard at that. Of our total number of searches that we've done, we're very pleased to say that I believe the last analysis that we did, almost 70% of our finalists have been women. And 70% of our communities have had women as finalists. And I believe it's roughly 35% have actually chose women to serve in these positions, which is a little bit higher than the state average. I believe Massachusetts has about 31%. So we're tracking a little bit higher than that. We've also been successful in reaching out and bringing people of color into the fields or the pools of candidates that we've had. Again, is something that we take very seriously, is in terms of trying to get the word out there and getting more people to be engaged in the process.
Thanks.
And also our connections with the Suffolk University program, again, we're seeing a wide range, of folks being involved, in that program, which helps us to, get a feel for, the folks coming into the profession today. And see how that's going.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank all of you for your submission, your interest, and your presence here tonight to speak with us. The question I have is, when you get to the later stages with the screening committee and then with the board in the final round, if those groups are having difficulty reaching agreement or consensus on candidates and don't seem to be making progress, at what point do you intervene to try to move the process forward and facilitate some of the discussions or the disagreements that are preventing consensus from being reached?
That's a tough question because I don't know if we've ever really ran into that. So we must be doing something right. I just can't figure out what it is. I guess that, and again, John and Sharon can jump in on this, but I would say that what my comment earlier about the partnership approach that we have, I like to think that we don't tell, let's start with the screening committee. We don't tell the screening committee right up front who to pick, but we work hand in hand with the screening committee as to who the candidates are, what they bring to the table, what their skills are, what their histories are. And we build a relationship right at the outset with the members of the screening committee that's really based on, I'll come back to the same term, partnership. That we want to be a resource. So it's a delicate balance of how do we put ourselves into this process in a way that we're providing information that we have that people may not have. We do have, we have knowledge of candidates. We have knowledge of people's skills, and we don't want to step in. You want us to work with the screening committee. We enjoy working with the screening committees, but it really has to be one of working together and not one of us simply. There are communities that have asked us, just bring the screening committee 7 people and let them interview them. We assume that you're going to want us to bring in everybody and say, okay, here's the history of these people, here's the skills, this is what we think, and let them really drive that bus, but with us as a guardrail to sort of shepherd them and guide them towards the right decision for the town of Northborough. Because we have that knowledge, we have that background that we think we can be helpful. And then once the interviews are held, we sometimes work as a devil's advocate of why are you making a choice the way it is? Why are you selecting these candidates? Really working hand in hand with them to understand what the strengths are that they're bringing forward and where the weaknesses may be, so that they feel comfortable with the decisions that they're making. In the end, these are their decisions, but we can help sort of guide them along. Likewise, with the board, I think about all of our 95 or so searches that we've done for managers. I can only think of really one that it was a 3-member board, and ultimately one member of the board had to step aside for conflict issues. So it's turned out to be a 1-to-1 vote. We couldn't work our magic there. But every other community, it has been, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 that it hasn't been a unanimous vote in the end. They may have chosen, it might be a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, but ultimately they switch it over and make it unanimous because we've been able to sort of bring that consensus together as to who the best candidates are and what particular skills each one's bring, so there's a comfort level with all of the candidates that are brought forward. But again, other than that one that comes immediately to mind, there's pretty much been unanimity on every single one of our searches.
Usually it's just providing process. So with screening committees, you're a board that works regularly together. The 5 of you, you meet week to week. But when you put a screening committee together, you're putting together people who don't meet regularly together. So they're not used to the interaction amongst themselves. So what we can do is we come in and we provide ideas of how to move the process. So if they're stuck in moving the process, we may put a suggestion on the table and say, all right, why don't each of you give your top 3 candidates and let's put them on a board and let's see how that's looking. So we bring ideas to the table, how to break the logjam in the process. So we do this often enough. I mean, we've been doing it our whole career. And so we just bring those ideas. We also make sure that the screening committees are understanding the different views. Sometimes it's about bringing different candidates to the table, for the board to look at in the end. We just try to put all that information on the table and the different viewpoints and guide them through that process. So we make suggestions on a very regular basis on how to get through the process. Some screening committees are, clicking all the way through. We don't have to make too many suggestions. Others need sometimes, a little bit of help in getting through the process because they're not used to working with each other on a regular basis.
Right. Go ahead, Sharon.
I was gonna say, it's also making sure that all the voices on the committee are heard. Occasionally, you have 1 or 2 who, sit back and then they're not as vocal about what their concerns are or their thoughts. And you want to bring that out because those can be very compelling points of view that others want to hear and may change the direction of the dialogue. So it's making sure that all the voices at the table are heard. That's very important.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Julianne, you had one more question, please.
So have you ever had a situation where it was an unsuccessful recruitment? And if that happened, what did you learn from it?
I guess there are a couple of, there's the case that I just described where we had the 3-member board where 1 member had to step aside and it was a 1-1 vote. I don't know what, we could never get beyond that one. I'm not sure what we learned there. Not to go back to that community.
You get a 5-member board, maybe.
Well, they actually, that community has actually is now in the process of, I think, moving to a 5-member board. The other community that comes to mind that was not, and this is going to run a little counter to what I said a few moments ago, but there was another community that we worked with that had a successful conclusion in terms of unanimous support for a candidate. However, I'm going to say it wasn't a successful search because it didn't work out in the end. And it was a very quick turnaround as to a recognition by that community that they had made the wrong decision. And we knew it was the wrong decision. But this is really a challenging. We want to play a role of helping the community to build to that consensus, but we don't want to take over the process. But what I think we may have learned through that is perhaps we need to be a little bit more assertive from time to time. And even though we encouraged the screening. We tried to discourage the screening committee from going from a certain direction. They went there. Then we tried to discourage the board from going a certain direction, but they went there. And then it didn't work out. We actually got good references from that community but it was a search that I wish we'd been a little bit more assertive in that one. We had another one that it's very similar. And the best thing that happened in that community was the candidate that was chosen lasted about two and a half years. But then the board said, look, we really made the wrong decision. What was helpful is that particular community, the successful candidate came in and said, I know I wasn't the top choice of community paradigm. So that was helpful to us, because then the community came back to us and said, they told us right up front that they weren't your choice. So help us again this time. Just tell us who to hire. So we didn't do quite that, but they're very, very happy now. So.
And sometimes the board or committee, we always stress, please talk to us individually, as each individual member of the committee and the board, please feel free, talk to us, call us, any questions. We try to tell you as much as we can, but if you have anything you want to know, anything you want to dig deeper into, just call us. And pretty much 7 days a week, we're available or make ourselves available. And occasionally you get a community that just doesn't do that. They're like, nope, we know what we're doing. We don't need to talk to you. It's like, you almost beg them to talk to you. And the ones who do and want kind of hash out the candidates, it's typically a better result.
Thank you.
It comes down to, we had one other situation where it was a 7-member board, and it went very well through the screening committee. They interviewed actually 3 finalists for the position. And then the council determined that they want to review what the conditions of employment were, from the charter. And they just couldn't come to an agreement. So they suspended the search, because they couldn't come to an agreement on that. So things do happen in between that way. But that's one where we got to be clearer up front to make sure we understand the conditions going into the search.
Well, thank you very much. That concludes our questions of you. What questions do you have of us?
I don't think I have any. Again, I know you've been there since 7 o'clock tonight working on. I looked at your agenda. I know you did some work before you got to us, before you did your interviews. So I'm not going to make up a question. I think we know we've done enough of these searches. We know how these searches work. We know how to go in and do it. I don't think we have anything specific. I don't have anything specific about Northborough and your process that I know you're going to be making a decision later tonight based upon your agenda item. And, hopefully, you have a good sense of who we are, what we can bring to you. And we certainly would look forward to the opportunity to work with the town of Northborough and all of you on this. John or Sharon, if you have questions.
No, we would love the opportunity.
Yep, we're ready to hit the ground running.
Well, thank you very much to all 3 of you. We appreciate your time tonight.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Well, that concludes our interviews. Another somewhat late evening already. Are we can stop it here and pick it up another time, or we can continue and see if we can reach a decision tonight. I think that's preferable as far as the timeline goes, but I don't want to force anyone to stay any later if people are out of energy or anything like that. Opinions?
My only concern is if we do the deliberation tonight, we're going to feel like it's almost 10 o'clock, and maybe we would give it more consideration if we did it another night. That's my thought.
Other thoughts?
I can continue. I'm good. I'm good for a bit.
Okay, Jason?
Same. I'm certainly happy and willing to continue after having reviewed the proposals and had the interviews here. I think I have some ideas about, my preferences.
Christian, any opinion either way?
I can keep going. I mean, I totally see what Julianne is saying. But it's not quite 10, and I as long as I arranged to sit in a different place tonight so I can stand up when I get restless, because I can't sit for too long. I get so restless. So so as long as people don't mind me like kind of standing up periodically, you'll still be able to see me.
Okay.
That'll be fine.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd like to continue on and see if we can reach a conclusion, particularly while all of these are fresh in our mind. I think that's also helpful. We can handle this in any number of ways. Perhaps one way to start is we've heard from 3 all qualified firms. Maybe one way to do it is if anyone has a firm of those 3 that maybe they don't think is right now the best fit for this position for Northborough, maybe call it out. And if there's some consensus around that, we can save ourselves a little bit of time and not discuss that one further. I saw Scott up just a fraction of a second before Jason.
Yeah, so thank you, Mitch. I think based on both the content of the proposal and then in the interviews tonight, in my opinion, if I was looking to the that group that I wouldn't rank as high as the others, then the GovHR proposal was lacking in a couple areas, and then I felt the interview wasn't as strong as the others.
Jason?
Exactly the same conclusion. I think the two applicants were both, in my mind, clearly stronger than GovHR USA. And so, yeah, that's where I sit.
Okay, Julianne?
I agree with with Scott and Jason.
Okay. Kristen, are you all right with that also?
Sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think GovHR clearly qualified. They deserve to be in the mix. But for whatever the combinations, I don't see them as being as good a fit as the other 2, who I think are both very highly qualified. And I think that's going to be the harder decision to make. So I think we're agreeing by consensus that we're not going to discuss GovHR further. I will, I guess, open it up to discussion about pros and or cons of either of the other 2, Municipal Resources Incorporated and Community Paradigm. Kristen, you had your hand up.
So Municipal Resources was Bob and Buzz, right? I wrote down everybody's first name.
Yes.
And so I was really impressed with Bob and Buzz knew their stuff. They did their homework. They watched our last meeting. They know who's leaving. They know that the 2 people who are on the ballot right now are running unopposed. All of that made me feel like they did homework on Northborough, like current homework. The other group seems to know Northborough sort of in general, but I appreciated that extra effort that they clearly took. And then also they seemed both very personable guys and sort of easy to talk to. And I felt like they were a little warmer personality wise than the community paradigm. Nothing against Bernie. He definitely knows his stuff, but I also felt like Bob and Buzz, and granted it was a while ago that we heard them talk, but I did take quite a few notes, and I remember feeling like, oh, these guys are really gonna listen to us. And they kept saying things like, we take our cues from you and we get all our ideas from what you tell us, whereas both the other two interviews, they said things like, we're going to try and direct you. I mean, just here and there, just little comments they would make that made me feel like they might put a little more pressure on us. And I understand that could just be that maybe they meant they don't want us to make a bad choice like that last town that they were talking about, or the wrong choice for Northborough. And I totally understand that. And I certainly could use some help with this, but I don't know, personality wise, I really liked the first two guys. And I felt like I could work with them really comfortably.
Anybody else? Oh, come on.
Sure, I'll go.
Someone's got to raise their hand. Julianne.
So I agree with all of what Kristen said, but for me, it was also, it based on the proposals that they put forward, municipal resources has a larger catchment area, would you call it? I feel like community paradigm is too focused on Massachusetts. And I like the idea of, maybe getting a candidate from Vermont, or, that's really fresh eyes. So that's another part of what I liked about Bob and Buzz.
Just on that point, there are pros and cons of that. Each state has its own unique character and unique laws, and bringing somebody down to start here from another state that hasn't worked in Massachusetts before, there's a ramp up period for that. I've seen it done. It can definitely work.
But they have worked here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, they have. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
if for example, somebody from Vermont as a
oh, I see what you mean.
as a candidate.
Okay. Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, I was going to kind of raise that same point, Mitch, that that there is a lot of kind of subject matter expert aspect to this in terms of familiarity with Massachusetts and form of government and everything like that. And I would be hesitant. You can always find candidates, and very capable candidates, that will come as finalists. But I'd be hesitant for Northborough to be the training ground for such a candidate unless they were truly, truly exceptional. In terms of the two candidates here, municipal resources and community paradigm, I would say I feel in a sense equally comfortable. I think they're both very capable. They both had a lot of placements in Massachusetts. I think community paradigm has maybe a particular focus there with the number of placements they've made, particularly over the last 5 years or so, specifically for town managers and town administrators in a number of communities that, would be demographically similar to Northborough. In addition to that, they have already worked a number of times with the town of Northborough to make placements for some of our other department positions. And so I think to some extent they do have, some direct familiarity with the town through some of those prior department placements. Not necessarily, well, actually, Becca was a placement, right? Is that right, Becca, from Community Paradigm? So I think Northborough's familiar territory to them, and I don't see that they would have any trouble understanding what our needs are, and formulating the right kind of candidate profile from that. And then additionally, I guess it's hard to say how much guidance would be needed. Depending on the composition of a screening committee and the whatever prior experience any of those members might have had or don't have. some guidance from the consultant is precisely what you need to structure the process, to kind of call attention to what some of the priorities or the more significant points of evaluation are, and just to try to provide some discipline in that regard. So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. Scott.
Yeah, and along similar lines, when it was just, reviewing the proposals over the course of the last couple of days, I scored community paradigm higher, and kind of based on what Jason said, given the placements that they've made in Northborough as well, and I felt that they're coming in knowing more about the town in recent years than the others. So that's where I came into tonight, giving them the nod. I agree with Kristen. Bob is just warm and personable, right? And you felt like you could have some really candid discussions and really discuss, really get to, down to exactly what was needed. So, no huge reassurance that the kind of interviews that they would do with us, with department heads and other staff, would go very well. So that raised them in my mind. One thing I noticed, and I distinguished between the interviews tonight, where Community Paradigm led with our need for an interim town administrator. So that was top of their mind. For MRI, it was kind of at the end. Is that, oh yeah, and we know you also need this. And then, although we're not talking about GovUSA, I didn't even realize, right, that although we asked for it as line item 1 in the proposal, just didn't even come up at all, other than an afterthought. So it's it makes it harder for me, because I kind of came into tonight, with a nod towards Community Paradigm, and then great interview by Bob and Buzz. So it makes it a lot harder. But once again, I like the fact that Community Paradigm was top of mind on the interim needs, and recognition that we need to move quickly on that.
Sure. This is a hard one for me. I mean, I similar to Scott, I came in really liking Community Paradigm by their application, and by the fact that I've had the opportunity to work with Bernie a little bit. I chaired the search committee for library director that Bernie led that search, and working with him was really fantastic, and brought us some excellent candidates. And we chose the most excellent of the excellent candidates, I think, for the town library. I also had the chance to bump into Bernie a couple of times at the MMA conference in January. And one of the things that I see being really critical here is what's the network of the people that we're bringing on, and how will they, once they understand the kind of candidate we're looking for, how will they be able to quickly identify some potential candidates that fit that need. And Bernie was like a social butterfly at that conference. He was chatting with absolutely everybody. He knows all the managers across Massachusetts very, very clearly, and I like that. I like that. I was similarly blown away by Municipal Resources in their interview tonight. I think Bob and Buzz were fantastic. Know exactly how to do this kind of work. I appreciated particularly that they brought up the election and the changing of this board, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot. That there's no way we can do this before the election, and we also shouldn't just put it on pause for the next 2.5 months to wait until after the election. So I appreciate that they thought about that and asked some questions and had some ideas as to how to deal with that. In the end, I think I give a slight nod towards Community Paradigm, but only slight. The fact that they have placed a number of our key personnel will make it a little bit easier, I think, when they talk to those people about what kind of a leader that they are looking for. in a town administrator, they've already, those contacts aren't new. That because they were part of those placements, I think they already have hopefully a comfort level with them. And I suspect that's true, at least in a couple of cases, that they might be able to start that process, might be a little bit more thorough. So I have a hair edge towards community paradigm, but I'm not at all tied to it. Kristen.
Okay, so I hear what everyone is saying, but a couple of things. Community paradigm didn't even mention the election. They didn't even mention that Scott and Jason are leaving, and they're going to have to work with virtually 2 different boards, right? Because the 3 of us are staying the same, but 2 other people are changing, and that's really important. And I feel like that was a big hole in their application, and they kept saying, we know Northborough really well. And like, this is the woman's point of view, okay? I feel like Bob was listening to us as a group before he even showed up. And I felt like he was listening to us tonight. He was getting as much from us at that interview, as we were getting from him. Whereas Bernie, and I'm happy to hear that he was great to work with, and I'm happy to hear that you already like had this experience at the MMA, but that's just a coincidence, really. And it shouldn't be held against the other people because they didn't have that opportunity to be hired before for something else or to know you. But he came across to me as kind of a guy who knows everything, and don't worry. I mean, not super patronizing, but just don't worry, I'll take care of it. I know what you need. And that's not what I want from this experience. I want someone who's going to work collaboratively with all of us, all 7 of us, to do what's right for the town. Because I feel like right now in the town, there are a lot of people who keep bringing that sort of thing up, and we want to feel listened to, and we want people to, respond to our emails and whatever. And like, that's kind of how I felt tonight. It's there in either case, I think we would be in good hands, but I do feel like I want it to be an experience that I don't ever walk away from saying, oh God, do I have to talk to that guy again? And I'm a little bit afraid of that with community paradigm. And I realize there is a woman in that mix, but she didn't really have much to say, or she didn't get to say much. I'm not really sure what that vibe was. So I don't know. So that just made me a little concerned.
Okay. Very, very good points. Anybody else want to throw out an idea or something to say, Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I couldn't recall when I had last seen Bernie in action. It was the library. So thank you for reminding me that it was the library director search. I'm like, where was it that I had seen him at work? And in that experience, and it was limited, is I did not get a feel or get the impression negative in any way that he was not listening to folks. So I didn't get that. I haven't gotten that vibe from him in the past. But because I tell you, yeah, Bob and Buzz were, warm and inviting and listening and all that, and you felt like you could sit down and talk to him forever, right? So I totally get that. Yeah, that vibe makes a lot of sense to me. And so it is, yeah, it's an interesting choice to make, because we've got one firm that has a track record here in Northborough that I would say is positive. And then you had another firm that qualified as well, and they just had a really great interview. And so it's
and can I jump in on that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I do feel like they have very similar qualifications. And one thing that all three of them impressed me is they all knew like what towns have had openings lately. They all knew, they all had a list of all the different towns that they've helped. And I even feel like they were sort of piggybacking on each other. Like this guy retired from here, and then this other firm helped fill that job, and that kind of thing. It was really remarkable. I do feel like they all have very similar qualifications and experience.
Jason.
Yeah, I agree. I'd certainly agree. MRI had an excellent interview, and they certainly did their homework in terms of understanding some of the upcoming election dynamics and composition of the board changing and everything like that. I give them credit for having, already researched that and being aware of it, but I think that would have been an inevitable part of the process, regardless of who we hire. It's a fact of the timing of what we're doing. And it was going to be the case that whoever is assisting us is going to be aware of that and have to factor that into their process. As it's not as though if we were to go with community paradigm, we would be ignoring the two candidates who are on the ballot for these two seats in the upcoming election. They would be part of the process in any case. So while I give MRI credit, and it was very good, that interview and that aspect of their research and being prepared for it. For me, it's not necessarily a deciding point, choosing between what I think are two very good candidates. In my opinion, I think that community paradigms prior work with the town and their knowledge of some of the people they've already placed here would be a facilitating factor to understand the needs of the town, and also potentially as part of those reference contacts and everything that could lead to other candidates being identified.
Another item that Municipal Resources brought up that I really liked was the residency requirement, that they had seen that and called that out. This may be a case where Community Paradigm, having worked with Northborough, I know is already familiar with it, because one of the things that in the 30 seconds to a minute that Bernie and I talked at the MMA conference, that was brought up. And he said, you've got to change that. And so he was aware of that, but I think because of his familiarity, didn't do the research just prior to this interview and bring it up here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's aware of the election, the upcoming election change, but I don't know that for a fact, because I haven't talked to him since that conference. Julianne.
So I agree that we're probably going to be in good hands with either one, but so it will come down to the little things. And for me, one of the things that Municipal Resources mentioned is, and they kept saying this kind of, that every community is different. And this is something that we're discussing in the master plan, and how do we set ourselves apart from another community. And I really think that that's going to be a very important attitude to bring to this decision. And the other thing is, they just got more into the details, like the statement of they've seen that steering committees that are really successful have a very strong chairperson. So I liked those observations. And one of the things that I think is going to be really important for our town, in the bios in Buzz's bio, it says that he brings a lot of experience in public-private partnerships. And again, as we are working towards a downtown revitalization, that might be a talent that will be very helpful to us. That's it.
Thank you. So I want to see if we can bring this to consensus. from myself, I've said that I'm very, very narrowly towards community paradigm, but it's not a strong feeling. From Kristen, I'm seeing certainly you towards municipal resources as a stronger feeling. I'd love to hear the other three of you in terms of that thought and see if we can bring this to end. Jason.
I think I'm the same. I think they're both very good candidates. My own preference is leaning toward community paradigm.
Either Julianne or Scott.
Yeah, and I guess what's coming back to my mind is the emphasis on the interim administrator as well. And there, we're already thinking about candidates. So that's that practical element, concrete element, right out of the gate is putting some weight in my mind. And I was already thinking coming into tonight, just based on the content of the proposals and the history across both of them, that my preference was towards community paradigm.
Again, slight major variance.
I would say significant, not
Okay.
huge, but not hair thin, but significant enough that if I had to vote, if it was solely up to me, I would be voting for community paradigm.
Okay, Jason.
Yeah, it's interesting you raise that because last night I spent going through the proposals and had copies of the rubrics and checking off items and everything like that. And, by that measure, I do have community paradigm as superior in a couple categories compared to MRI. The interviews, to me, that's dead heat. They were both highly advantageous in my opinion. And so, that contributing with some of the content of the proposals, the number of placements that community paradigm has made over this relatively short 5-year period of time recently, and the span of those placements. I just feel the preponderance of the information in the proposal and the scoring of the rubric, to whatever extent that applies if we're having to make a tie break call. So I don't know what anyone else went through that process and what outcome they had in making that evaluation.
Jason,
So if there is one, by all means, let me know. Yeah.
Would you mind telling us like which one of these criteria you thought paradigm exceeded municipal, other than the interview?
Yes.
We need it.
Yeah. I mean, one of them was the just, it's kind of like the technical thing where they were submitting their recruitment materials. And I think MRI just had a single submission, but it was for, was it Westford or Wayland? One of the two, a W. It was for Westford.
Yes, I did sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say I did a similar scoring that on that singular example versus the multiple examples. The rubric had us, scoring based on more examples.
Right. The references remain to be determined. The interviews were a deadlock. I thought the in the presentation of the proposal, I had community paradigm more highly advantageous and MRI advantageous for the first category, the proposers' networking strategies. I think in the interview tonight, MRI kind of filled that up a little bit, but community paradigm, I think, was very explicit in enumerating the many different organizations through which they have contacts with Suffolk and MMA and ICMA and a number of different ones explicitly listed, which from the scoring standpoint on the rubric put them ahead in my mind.
Yeah, I also on the paper scoring also had community paradigm slightly ahead in a couple of categories. I thought that the proposals experience and key personnel was presented in more detail and more clear in those details for community paradigm versus MRI.
Mhm.
I thought the community involvement on the MRI side was definitely a bit more vague. Obviously, they know what they're doing, and they showed that clearly in the interview, but the rubric that was prepared, community paradigm was ahead there, and I definitely, as was mentioned earlier, the recruitment materials. Community paradigm included more examples, and I thought they were all good examples. I thought the one example from municipal resources was also good, but there was only one. I question whether that should be rated that strongly. They've all done a bunch of them. If they had included 50 of them, I probably would have not ranked it any higher. I'd probably rank it lower for wasting too many electrons or paper. Actually, there are paper copies of these.
Yeah, and in those multiple submissions, examples, not only a couple of the full brochures, but a couple of the one-pagers, and then even that example of the posting that was done digitally. So it gave me a reason to think that, okay, a broader method of getting communications out there in multiple channels and multiple types of communications. So I had scored them higher for that as well.
Kristen.
So I'm coming back to a couple of things, and one of them is that we're not going to be dealing with packets of paper going forward. We're going to be dealing with people, so that's important to me. And if one group has better outreach styles, that's something we can say, hey, can you do this to the other group? So I feel like that's a solvable problem if that was an issue. Another thought I had regarding their experience with Northborough, like I love the library director. She's one of my favorite people who works in town by a million miles. She is also someone that immediately popped into my head that I would want to get her take on who would be the next town administrator, because she is dealing with unique problems at her library that everyone might not realize. And I think right now she's getting support from the town, but there are a lot of people in the world right now who are attacking libraries and the kinds of books that they have. And we need to make sure that whoever comes in and is her new boss is very supportive and understands that this is a big issue for the library. So like community paradigm, Bernie was like, so I tell you who I want to interview. I want to interview the DPW and the town accountant and the chiefs. And, he had a list of people he was going to interview. And then he even said, it's not that the library and the senior center and the whatever aren't important. It's just that they're not as important to what I want to do for figuring out who's your new leader. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that's the kind of thing where I'm like, you don't get to come in and tell us, like, you didn't even ask us, you're just saying these are the people you definitely want to interview. Like if I said to him, you really have to interview the library director, I'm sure he would, but just this sort of, I know how to handle everything attitude was just really too much for me. And I was just the other guys were like, I wrote down, we'll be able to tell the search people, meaning whoever the consultants are, whom to talk to about what kind of candidates we're most interested in. So I immediately started making my own list there. And I mean, I had the police chief and the fire chief and the superintendent too, but like, I also had the library director, and I don't want someone telling me, well, that's not important. And I don't want to have to explain myself and say, this is why it's important, and go on and on and on. I just want someone who's going to listen and say, okay, this is important to Kristen. She gave me a quick soundbite of why, and I'm going to go do that thing. And I don't want to have to like, kind of make a case for everything I want to do. And I'm just worried that, you know, with somebody who, I mean, I've really liked working with you, Jason, but we don't always agree. I think we can admit that. And I think this is a really good example of how you're very like structured, and you like your rubric, and you're like your little notebook. And I'm definitely going by, I think the two groups can provide the same services to the group, to the board, and to the town, but it's also very much a personal interaction, and I'm getting a very different, I did not think the interviews were equal at all, and I'm getting a very different feel from the two. So that's why I haven't just flipped up my hands and say, fine, if you three are, you know, definitely leaning towards the other guys because you all scored them higher on your rubric, then I accept that, because I'm going to be in this the whole way, and it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot of work, and I think whoever we're working with, we're going to be dealing with them a lot. And so I just really want to make my case. And if it goes the other way, I accept it, and I will do my best. And maybe they're listening to us right now, or they'll watch it on YouTube later, and they'll know what my concerns are. But I just want to make sure it's clear that, you know, these are the things that I'm thinking. And I'm also kind of thinking like, if we hired these people before under the John administration, you know, John's leaving, we have to do things differently. Is that another reason to just not go with what's kind of comfortable and we already know, if the other people are also qualified?
Thank you, Kristen. Very compelling argument. I'd like to hear from Julianne if you have anything that you'd like to add, because we haven't heard from you in a little while. I really want to wrap this up soon. I think we may be close to it. But Scott, I'll recognize you afterwards, or if Julianne, if you don't have anything you want to say right now, I'll go right to Scott.
Well, the thing that's been on my mind for most of this discussion is that I'm wondering, since Paradigm has already done so much work in town, if and maybe, you know, it came off to me too, that there's a little bit of complacency. Like we've done all this work for you. We know what you want. And I think that you know, municipal resources is going to take, you know, a more detailed look at us, because they don't know us as well, maybe. And I think that could be a really good thing. Also, to Kristen's point, that did strike me also, that Paradigm mentioned only the department heads as the people to interview. And I think, you know, if you're interviewing the superintendent, you should interview the teacher and the teacher's aide. And so I'm, you know, I thought that was a good observation. And I would have to say that even as we discuss it, and even as you pointed out, you know, your analysis on the rubric, I still have to go with municipal resources in a very strong way.
Scott.
Yeah, I was just thinking what you said, Kristen. I wonder, does it help any under community paradigm that it would be Sharon that would be doing most of the interviews that help in any way and make you feel better about if we did go with them?
She seemed lovely, and I didn't get to hear her talk enough, honestly, to really answer your question. And I might feel totally differently if Bernie hadn't done almost all the talking. And so,
Jason.
We had 3 different applicants tonight. One was a single person. One was a pair of people who kind of talked equal time, but the third one was a group of 3 people with a, clear principle among them whose purpose is to do most of the talking during the presentation, with the other 2 people there to supplement the discussion. So it wasn't a case that all 3 people had to talk equally, and if they don't, there's some kind of, undesirable dynamic among that. Okay.
No,
So-
I wasn't insinuating that. I
Well-
just meant that if I had heard her, like if she's going to be the one doing a lot of the interviews, it would have been nice to hear her. If she was the one I would be talking to, I thought I would be talking to Bernie, though. I thought he said he would interview each of us independently, and then we would have all their phone numbers and we could call any of them we wanted, which that was a plus. But it sounded to me like he was going to be doing at least the interviews of us. That's what it came across like to me, not Sharon.
Okay.
People or something.
So as I said, I have a very, very slight preference for community paradigm, but looking at the weight of the other 4 members in terms of their strength for who they prefer, I think there is a little bit more net consensus towards municipal resources. So I am planning to vote that way. I'm open to somebody changing my mind, but I think that's better for the board. Jason.
I'm just trying to parse the difference between a slight leaning toward community paradigm and a net consensus of MRI among the board.
I want to make sure that we as a board are as comfortable as we can be with who we hire for this. And I'm seeing among a couple of members some very strong, in one case, extremely strong preference of one versus the other. And that means a lot to me. I think for myself, and I think for you, Jason, and you, Scott, it's slight to moderate in favor of community paradigm, where particularly with Kristen, I'm seeing some pretty strong feelings. So that's my take on it. If it was totally up to me and it was just a Boolean one way or the other, I would go with community paradigm. But given that they are so close in my mind, I'd rather find what I think is best for the board to operate within, and I see that as a slight preference towards municipal resources.
And I hope that I'm not way off base and wrong about this.
I think the points you've made to me sound valid, not necessarily the things that I would pick up on, but I don't disagree with them.
Okay.
So that's the way
I'll support the board. I'll support the board's consensus.
Likewise, I mean, recognizing that this is a difficult position, right? In that if we were to purely score it, it might be 3-2 in favor of community paradigm, but there's some not mitigating factors, but additional factors. Let me say it that way, right? In terms of level of comfort with the style that the consultant might bring, and also I recognize that they're going to be working more with Mitch and Kristen and Julianne right? And so in some ways, your votes count more, right? And, that's just the nature of the bid. So, all things being equal, your votes are more equal. And so that's, yeah, the consensus amongst the three of you actually, has a higher weight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jason.
And I will agree, the process for this search is figuratively going to outlive me. So in the interest of the board members who will be continuing and the preponderance of their opinion and their consensus, I'll support that decision.
Okay, sounds like we do have consensus. Thank you very much. And one of the things that I find just interesting about this is I have seen some boards, when they're hiring, whether it be an administrator or a department head or something like that, go through a somewhat similar process to what we just went through, and we reached a unanimous consensus in the end, despite some differing opinions. I think that's
and that's what just struck me, Mitch. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's what just like popped the light bulb for me too. This is likely to be the discussion when it comes time to choose the new town administrator, right? We've probably, most of us watched Foxborough's discussion, right, about John, and in a very similar vein, right, in discussing the candidates. There was, they had differing opinions on who their lead candidate was, but in the end, it was a 5-0 vote, in favor of John. So I think that's the nature of the business, kind of the way that it's structured is you've got to make a decision and bring it all together. So that's good to see.
That's great. Would someone like to make a motion? Sorry, Becca.
Becca.
Sorry, I just want to make one comment about process.
Sure.
So the RFP process is, obviously an evaluation of price and non-price proposals. We have not talked about price at all. But now that you have completed your evaluations, I will let you know that MRI.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, okay. I'll wait.
Sorry, we should. I think
Yeah,
we should vote.
Okay, you're right. I'll wait.
Yeah. Let's pretend we didn't even hear any of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless it's going to break the budget.
I'll have that motion in just a moment. The window closed on me, Mitch. Okay, here we go. Now I think I'm ready. It's right here over on this screen. Let me move it. So, Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to award the contract for town administrator recruitment services to Municipal Resources, Inc., contingent upon the review of references, and another window popped up in front, and to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Scott, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Julianne?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. That is awarded, tended for those things. Becca, you had something you'd like to tell us about?
So, my apologies for jumping the gun a little bit, but I want to let you know that MRI was not the lowest proposal. They were the second lowest. Community Paradigm was the lowest. And so because the board has made a selection based strictly on evaluation criteria, which is appropriate, Mitch, I will need to work with you to draft up an explanation of why the board chose not to go with the lower. It's just part of the process, the RFP process required under 30B. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Sure.
It's not going to break the bank. There is funding available in the personnel board account to procure this service to move forward with the recruitment. So congratulations, and I'm looking forward to getting the process started.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you very, very much for your help in this. And just so the board knows, Becca and I have had a couple of conversations about the process going forward. And I'm hoping that everyone will support Becca being intimately involved in the search process. I think she can be very, very helpful to the board in a number of ways, as both having been through this from her perspective, and being a bridge between our board and staff.
Yeah.
Very good.
And being there to help the interim.
Yes.
Right. That's a
Okay.
big thing.
Very good. So Becca, you'll be able to, we need to check, you'll need to check a couple of references, and you'll, I assume, reach out to probably all three candidates and just let them know what we've decided.
Yeah, I suspect that the references will be fine, but
Yeah.
if anything comes up, I'll certainly be in touch with the board.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Let's see, we, as always, have public input at the end. There are no attendees, so I won't even ask and wait for that. Did anyone have any other business that they need to bring up tonight?
Just thank you everyone for the code word thing. I thought that was really fun, and I hope we can do it again with another class. Maybe I'll have one of you hold up the sign.
And if any fifth graders are still watching, the secret second code word is municipal. Very good. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Scott, seconded by Jason to adjourn. All those in favor? Kristen?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Unanimous in favor. We are adjourned 10:42 p.m. Thank you very, very much. Have a great night.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.